Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. Amy, would you mind doing the roll, please?
I would be happy to. Judy Neville, not here yet. Tom Schulte,
Here.
me, here. Mr. Lavieri,
Here.
Michael Chen,
Here.
Chris Labrie. Victor Everest.
Here.
Maria Weingarten. Bob Hamill. Colin Dobbin
Here.
and James.
Okay. Okay, we started this meeting at an odd time, and I'm thinking that we have some people assuming it's a 7 o'clock start, not a 6:30 start. So I wouldn't be surprised if they all walk in, have a big shock of surprise on their face, and try to sneak their way to the table to sit down. So we'll do that. So I'll hold off on the minutes of approval. We'll do that. We'll do that after the
We have to see.
after
We
the.
have 3 hours now.
I don't think so. We'll do that. We can do it.
That's fine.
We're not gonna vote on anything just yet. We're gonna do public comments, so we'll be okay. Okay, one thing I just want to make a few introductory comments on the budget. And Tucker, do you have a sign in for people to speak? Okay, so just to make, I'll say it now, I'll say it when I'm done, and I'm sure I'll say it 1 or 2 more times. But if there's anyone who wants to make a public comment, there's a sign in here. And I want to just make it clear, we'll do it by whoever signs in order that they sign in, address, and then they have 3 minutes, I believe, are the rules. So we'll do 3 minutes for comments. Okay, well, with that said, welcome and thank you all for being here. Just a few things. I want to give everybody an overview on our process, where we are, and where we're headed here for this budget season. But I'd like to start by thanking my Board of Finance for all the time and effort everybody put in this year, especially certainly the last month, and all the working with all the town departments on next year's budget. So just a few comments. I think, as you all know, we spent the last 4 weeks analyzing all the needs and the requests for each department, as well as the revenue assumptions for next year's budget that begins on July 1st. So tonight we'll take public comment, and then we will work after the public comments to finalize capital and any operating questions that we have. And then we meet again on Thursday. I know everyone can't wait, but we meet again on Thursday to vote on the budget. We'll send the budget to the town council for their review and input, comes back to us. We set the final mill rate and final approvals, including capital, in May and June. Just a few headlines. As I think everybody knows, over the last 4 years, we were able to hold the money raised by taxation from town taxpayers flat. We're able to do this while continuing to invest in our town, our facilities. We paid down debt. We kept our pensions fully funded. We invested in our great school system that continues to rank among the best. As I said in my annual financial letter to the town back in January, had we increased spending just 2.5% for each of those years over 4 years, as many towns did, New Canaan taxpayers would have been on the hook for another $18 million in property taxes over that same period. So by keeping the spending in check and taxes flat, we avoided that $18 million in taxes forever. We did implement a modest increase to the mill rate last year of 1.14% this fiscal year, given really pressures of healthcare costs and inflation. As we worked over the budget on this budget over the past few months, we knew economic forces would impact our budgeting and our planning. Rising interest rates will definitely put out chill on housing at some point. I'll call it an engineered contraction in the economy by the Fed, with a declining money supply, will at best drive economic caution later this year and possibly next. And that's really the window that we need to be thinking about for this budget. Regarding revenue, aside from property tax revenue, we are seeing a slowdown in conveyance fees from real estate sales compared with prior year. We continue to see parking fees rise, but still below the pre-pandemic levels, and building permit fees are also running below prior year. Again, as I mentioned, one of the bright spots for us is on interest income. We expect to earn nearly $1 million more in interest income this year than budgeted. And we expect to earn more next year, obviously, than this year, as we'll benefit from a full year of higher rates. So let's talk about debt for just a moment. I get a lot of emails about our debt. We've reduced the town debt from an all-time high of $147 million to approximately $95 million last year. 95 or $100 million of debt, it's a big number, but it needs to be put in some context. Using $100 million, which includes the school's debt, it's about 4% of the town's gross income and about 1% of the asset values in the town. Our annual debt expense, principal and interest expense, is about $15 million per year, or about 10% of our total annual expense. That we watch carefully, and we are having some big projects, school projects, Irwin Park, some large investments that we made are starting to roll off and be paid out. And we are, lowering the annual debt expense, have the opportunity to lower it over the next 2 to 4 years. With a lower base debt to operate from, we can add debt, and we will, for key projects, including ongoing school building maintenance, other town projects and programs. Over the past 4 years, we also issued and refinanced debt at historically low levels, saving the town millions of dollars in interest expense. All rates are fixed, not variable, question I often get. As many of you know, we pay down our principal and interest costs for each bond that we issue on a straight line basis each year, another question I get. No balloon payments. We reduce our debt by approximately $15 million each year before adding new debt for new projects. We've watched rates bounce around in recent months and will issue future debt prudently, I would say, especially this year. The past 3 budget seasons have been tough. I think every department leader here can appreciate that. We've gone from plummeting revenues and uncertainty with COVID to rising expenses with inflation. But working together with the town departments, the Board of Selectmen, Town Council, we've met the needs of our town while keeping the amount raised by property taxes nearly flat. This budget that is nearly finished achieves many of those same operating goals. We've fully funded our schools, police, fire, and town programs. On an operating basis, we have funded our parks, all the health and human services requests, all the emergency services, town sports, town departments, and so many other important programs and initiatives, including the vast majority, not all, of the capital needs for buildings, roads, and equipment. Through careful spending and planning over the last 3 years, we have not cut school programs, sports, arts, teachers, important social programs, or any emergency services or safety spending. And through a very healthy partnership between the town and private investments, we opened up our new library last month. We're working on sports facilities, the Playhouse Theater, and the movie theater, all with public and private funding. During our work this past month, we found over $4 million of operating expense to avoid or cut. This will dramatically reduce the expected increase in expense and related taxes. We will also prioritize our capital expense. I said this last week, we love to buy new things when the world is falling apart. Things are cheaper and they're available. Unfortunately, right now, things are expensive and hard to get. We rotate and spread out our purchases. For this reason, we avoid getting hit with too many spikes in any one year. This is an expensive year to purchase needed goods and services. We get it. So we will prioritize and defer where we can without putting our people, emergency services, schools, or town assets at risk. Today, we remain in strong financial shape. As has been the case for decades, this town and the Board of Finance supports our great school system, helping keep it a leading district. As we've said many times, this takes time, commitment, money, and leadership. 67% of the budget this year will be spent on Board of Ed expenses, 67%. Another question I get. We want to retain our great schools for the next decade. That remains our top priority. This town and its taxpayers have always believed it's an important social responsibility to have a leading school district. The Board of Finance will always assess spending and ask how to optimize the money spent. That's our job. But I believe the town bodies share a common goal, providing for and delivering a top-tier school district every year. So in summary, the combined economic challenges of inflation, rising rates, and economic slowdown have presented challenges to our budget for this coming fiscal year. We'll maintain our financial strength as a town. We'll optimize and prioritize our spending. We will continuously improve our town assets, services, and the support that our residents expect, all in an effort to deliver value to the taxpayers and residents. So with that, let's open up the floor to the residents. Anyone here to sign in? Did you get anybody? Oh, that's a good idea. Thanks, Tucker.
Okay, notice and warning, Town of New Canaan Board of Finance public hearing on the 2023-2024 budget. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Board of Finance of the Town of New Canaan in the Town Hall Meeting Room and via Zoom on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. on the tentative budget recommendations for the town and the sewer utility for the fiscal year July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
And I don't see anybody on the list. No one online. Anybody online, if you'd like to make any public hearing comments, please raise your virtual hand.
It's a first. Well, we don't get many speakers, but zero could be a first. Is this like a Board of Ed meeting, Brian? Just say. I'd like to give people a few minutes. Amy's looking at me, but not many. We've had some late nights.
Yeah.
What do you think, Tucker? And we started late. Yeah. We're 15 minutes.
First for me.
And it's always at 6:30, right? Every year.
Well, it's noticed. It is what it is. Maybe we should take the vote on the budget right now. And go to Gates. All right.
Yeah,
Well, okay.
yeah.
We will move off of that line item and we'll go right to the budget. So this is I was going to use some of the time for comments to, pull that together, but now we're not going to do that. So this is a two-part conversation. I'd like to start on the operating side and then we'll go to capital. And on the capital, I'd like to go through Josh, you might have to lead the discussion. I don't know if you want to come up here or what, but we want to walk through where we are on capital. Departments have offered up some reductions. I'd like to go one at a time, put a bow on each department as we go through it, because Thursday I'd like to just vote. And if we have work left over, we have work left over, but it would be great if we could put a bow on everything tonight. And I think Brian and Board of Ed, Dan, you guys will go first when we're done with this. So on the operating side, everyone has the page with the changes.
No.
It's on the tablet.
It's on your tablet.
Did you have access?
Oh,
No.
great, thank you.
The problem is this is outdated. because of the
think it-
Meeting that just took place.
Right.
You're
That wasn't, was that material? No,
Yeah,
the change?
yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Well, because the 1.2 was budgeted in the current version of the budget. And I think that got lowered to 0.2. Yes, it's not. a
Oh,
part of that.
I thought you had it in here.
It was on the list, but it wasn't baked. into the
Wow,
budget
wow,
because
wow.
they
That
hadn't
is
voted
good,
on anything yet.
good news. Okay.
Yeah.
Meeting's getting better all the time.
That's not bad news. I don't know if you want me to review any of the operating side of things or just let you know where we stand as. of
I would
now.
say on the summary of changes, you're adding another $1 million to this reduction then.
Correct.
Avoidance. I shouldn't call it reduction. It's an avoidance really. And you want to take a 1 minute on that and why we are where we are?
Oh, I don't think so.
We don't, we're okay, okay. All right. So you're talking about a 5.7 reduction.
5.7 reduction. Oh, total. Let me take a look. Let's see.
5.17.
5.1. So it was listed on this summary of changes list, but it wasn't baked into the percentage increase year over year for
Okay.
expenses.
I gotcha.
But right now, let me just, if you include that change to, that was voted on. Sure, I can share that screen.
It's really good.
It's just jumping through spreadsheets though, so it's not gonna be.
That one is last week's. That's
Yeah, for some reason I can't share it. Oh, why?
okay.
So
Well, what you'll do is we will take this, put that into the model that we've approved Thursday, all of
correct.
this. Okay, okay. All right.
So right now, the year over year for expenses is sitting at 2.36% increase for expenditures.
So we received from the selectmen an increase of
It was 6.28.
2.8.
It was an $8 million increase.
I have 9,057. Is that wrong?
That might be.
8.55, but I had total amount. Oh, no, raised by taxation. I'll take that back. Expenses was, yeah, okay,
That got lowered
okay.
to 3 million.
So we had an increase when we received it of 8 point what million?
Let me see, I can tell you right. Just grab my book. The increase was 8.8.
8.8 million, or you said 6.2%?
5.45%, sorry.
5.54, and now the increase is
3.8,
3.8 million.
2.3,
That's pretty good.
not bad.
That's pretty good. Okay, that's where we are on the expense side. Okay?
Yep.
Do we need to spend any more time on that? Okay,
I don't think so.
all right. Excellent. Okay, let's go to capital. You have the sheet you gave us.
Yeah, so the sheets were responses from the main departments for their prioritizing of their capital asks, as well as from DPW and Board of Ed of what they're deferring or cutting from their asks. Sorry, the DPW one on page 2 is kind of up a little bit, but they are all just reductions taken away. So I'm not sure if you want to go through each of these with me or with the.
I'd like to start, I'd like to go by department, and why don't we start? I mean, why don't you list what the Board of Ed has reduced? I think we're fine with it. I'd like to ask if there are any questions, and then we can be done with the Board of Ed.
Under planetarium, it would be 200 to 150.
200 to 150. I thought it had gone from 200 to 150 and then went from 150 to 100 again.
Sounds like you counted 50 twice.
Oh, okay.
Good catch.
Okay. I thought it was an additional 50,000 decrease from,
So what's the total?
okay. All right, so we're keeping that at 150.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Right, so from the Board of Ed side, if planetarium being reduced to 150, the high school redesign media innovation center being reduced from 150,000 to 0, so it's being deferred.
It's a deferral.
The high school auxiliary gym floor refinish being, I believe, deferred for 50,000. The Saks renovation of parking lots is also being deferred. Using some remaining funds from FY23,
Mhm.
that's 375,000 being reduced to 0. And also a diesel tank removal at the high school, 50,000 also. So it is a total from them of a reduction of 675, I believe.
I think that's right. That's what we said, right? Any questions on the Board of Ed?
It's good.
Thank you. Team Board of Ed. James, anybody else have any
No.
questions?
That's good.
Colm or Michael, anything on the Board of Ed capital?
It all sounds appropriate then.
We're all set.
Okay. Okay. All right, well then that will be what we will approve Thursday, what's left. I
Mhm.
want to be clear.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Feel free to stay. Let's do emergency services.
Sure.
Start with police.
Sure, police is on page 1. This is pretty much all of their capital asks prioritized from most important to, I guess you could say least important, but just prioritized in this way. I don't know if you want to speak to some of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for some reason I can't bring it up. Try it again.
There.
questions for the chief on capital? Anything on the,
What are we doing about the building? The renovation and the firearms training?
no,
Center.
no real change there. Maybe Amy, you could answer in terms of just the process on the building committee, the bids,
Right, so with the, we still have a placeholder for the building, right? And I believe what we did is we took out the placeholder in Tiger's budget for the training center.
Yeah.
And did we put in like a design number in there?
No
We haven't
worries.
removed it yet? Okay. Okay. But I thought we were going to because in the reality and the timing that between now and going through all this next fiscal year, the chances of us really needing or having a project ready to go, we felt was low in terms of placement and design and teamwork in terms of who's going to be involved with us and potentially doing it. It's preliminary.
For tonight, we have a placeholder in the budget. We have a process that's
Right.
running. And it's really not going to impact what we vote on tomorrow or Thursday. Right? Until we see final drawings and get a final decision and keep working the process. We're not,
There were two projects. One was the building.
Yeah.
One was, I was discussing the fire range. In terms of timing.
oh, yeah.
That was, because it would affect what we put in the capital budget. For the firearms.
So right now, there's $5 million for the training facility for 2023, 2024. Should that be taken out?
I don't think it needs to be taken out. The question is, will we spend it? Because we don't have the final plan, right? We don't have a final decision on a site. We don't have a final design. We don't have anything
We
that's
don't have
final. So
anything.
I don't have a problem leaving it in there. It's not like we're going to go borrow and spend it. There's nothing to spend it on.
Right.
So I think we'd leave it in, frankly. But I'm not sure we'd spend it or borrow it until we have all the rest of the details. Is the answer.
We're still working through all the details on, it. We have two locations we're looking at in town. Excuse me, and
Tiger, speak into the, yeah.
I thought my voice was loud enough, sorry. The,
Sorry.
we are still working through the process. We have two locations we're looking at in town. And then we are looking regionally as well. Problem we have is, it's 18 months away, right? So any point in time in there, if it starts to move forward, then we'd have to be back. But right now it is just a placeholder similar to the police department at
Exactly.
27.5. In that regard, we did hire a construction manager this morning. So that construction manager, Turner Construction, the same one that did the library, very similar project team. The project leader is the same. Some of the people down below have been relocated to other projects, but so we're very excited about that. And then we'll work through the final plans and then come forward with a guaranteed maximum price from Turner going forward. And that'll be a little bit later. And then we'll come back for finalization of that 27.5 million, however it shakes out at that time. And then we'll continue through the process of the training facility and see if we can find a location in town, excuse me, a suitable location in town, or if we'd have to look elsewhere. Right now, it's, like you said, it's just a place. So we're not looking for an appropriation. We're not looking for design money at present. We're still able to handle the majority of the work that we have to do for that with the monies that we have presently. So, I mean, before we go, towards a final decision on a location, we'll definitely be back, because we'll have to be approved.
How does that,
All the
what
boards
is,
of
how does that get, so how does that get resolved, actually, the site?
The site be decided upon, right now, it's being worked
I
on.
mean, that's not our swim lane, but that's a,
Yeah,
that's a
it's-
gating item for getting to us.
We're working on it. Right now, we're working on the town staff. Then I believe it might go to the building committee. I'm not quite certain on that. I think it'll go to the building committee for a final walkthrough as far as the design and what would be vetted out as the design. And then we, once we determine a location, we'd have to come back to the town council for a use of town land, an 8-24 for P and Z. Couple of other steps in there, and then we'd be back for funding. So there's a couple of steps first that
Yeah.
would have to go
Yeah.
through just to get approval to use the town land, say that it fits with the plan of conservation development, and then we'd be back to the boards to say, okay, this is what we feel the money.
I guess I would characterize it, we're sort of approved nothing, but have a placeholder for something.
Right.
But best way
It-
to,
it's
best way to
certainly-
phrase it.
It's certainly not going to hit our bonding. if
Yeah.
we
No,
worry
it's
about
not,
bonding.
no.
And
It-
right now.
Regardless of this year, it's not going to hit your,
That's right.
Yeah.
it's not going to hit your line.
And the discussion is, the police building committee has been pulled out of that discussion. So right now it's just parties in the town hall.
Okay.
So we're not really privy to anything.
All right.
So
Okay, so it doesn't come to us. Okay,
I'm good.
thanks, Tiger.
Thank you.
Okay, and so I guess maybe the question for the chief, if anyone else had it, is there anything you were looking to defer? That you felt like you could defer?
It's pretty tight that, we need
all of these things, and as I said to my email back to you, that,
Yep.
that we don't ask for wants usually with these items, and it's pretty lean year for, because we know we're asking for the building and all those other things, so we kept it pretty tight
Yep.
for as far as capital expenses, the things that were just needed to be replaced, and that's where that list is right now, so couldn't really pick one.
Okay.
But just so that we're clear, though, as you get to the bottom of the list, like you had to prioritize and understand some of these, you know, like reasonable people could have put them in slightly a different order, although when you get to the bottom of the list or whatever, were we to defer any of this, this would not cause you to be out of compliance, would it, with any regulation or best practice or anything else? 'Cause if it would, we should probably be aware of that.
Well, I mean, if you defer defibrillators, we might have less defibrillators on the road. So we wouldn't be out of compliance, but we wouldn't have those available to respond to emergencies.
Well, so these are in addition, these are not replacing.
No, they cycle out. They have a lifespan, and then we have to cycle up, get new ones, and these are replacements. Same thing with the tasers and the mobile data terminals, the radios, all those have a certain life cycle, so we have to replace them after a certain period of time.
Okay,
They don't add up to much either.
no,
Yeah,
it's-
how many do you have right now, chief?
There's one in every patrol vehicle that we have. I don't have the exact number, but
they're looking.
they're in
for-
our frontline police fleet. So
Yeah.
every department has one.
Yeah, my view that these are critical life-saving things is something that I think we should keep in.
Right.
Any other questions for the chief?
I'll
Good list.
also add on, we did some analysis on the extra duty fund to see how much.
Oh, yeah.
Of the funds we could actually utilize. And so a conservative estimate is about 75,000 that we could use towards the 100. It's 112,000 of their tax.
That goes against tax
Of their tax.
tax funded.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That'd be
All
great.
right. Very good. Reminds me, what did we come out of that meeting with? What was the amount of money that we had that we were able to not spend and repurpose out of last week's meeting? Remember the total?
Of the tax supported capital funds. There was.
12?
Right, 116 from closing projects, 500,000 from utilizing tax supported fund balance. There was also the 100,000 moved from Board of Ed. 149,000 from DPW, I believe. And
It's a.
Yeah.
Knocking on $1 million. That means we'll just, that's actually how we're gonna spend it and where we'll apply it. Isn't really for tonight. We could, that's how we're gonna. It doesn't determine whether we're gonna approve a bulletproof vest or as a result of those funds. It might mean where the money comes from, though. Bonded versus tax supported, and we may not have to use, new tax money since we've got that money. Good, okay.
I just had a quick question. Are any of these potentially ARPA eligible, or could we use any ARPA funds for any of these, or not really applicable?
Before you answer that question, we've spent 5.2 million and we have about $800,000 unspent, not uncommitted. The command vehicle was 250. There's, some bit over here, but just to be clean on spent or not spent, 5.2 spent, 800 left. Just so we know what we're dealing with in terms of even available ARPA funds. And then there's, I think 500 or 600 of that 800's already been softly committed, I would say. But I'm not sure is that fair, Amy?
Yeah, there's not much left.
Yeah.
If the most recent two projects get approved, which we have to discuss today.
That's right.
So I think the balance is like 49,000.
50,000, 47.
Yeah. That's close.
So back to your question, probably some of them are eligible,
would
but
think
it
some of them
wouldn't,
would be,
it
yeah.
wouldn't, I'm not sure it makes the priority list since I want to spend it on something else, but, okay. Okay, so I'm going to say, not hearing any other objections, the list, prioritized list, but it's approved and how we pay for it and how it gets funded and all the rest of it, that's on us. But good job on the capital. Yep, okay.
Yep.
Thank you, chief. Okay, let's go to fire. I don't think we have any questions. Do we have any questions? I don't think so.
Josh, do we have a current list of the capital that we revised? The revised
Well,
list?
nothing's really been revised.
Oh, so it's the same as we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Board of Ed had a handful of items that they took out.
Alright.
That's a revision.
Right.
We just said, okay, on police, fires up, then Russ.
But there isn't like an official.
And then
Okay.
any cautions or questions, concerns, requests? I think that, again, the list was a very reasonable list and a great budget, by the way. Looking at my board. Michael, calm. Any questions on fire?
No,
Nor do I.
Deal with fire engine.
With what?
What, fire engine? Yeah.
Yeah, because they have to order it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think the answer was, I think what we
It's right here.
agreed to was if we agree to do it, which I think we do. You want to put an order in sooner than later, since we'll have it sometime by 2030.
Right.
So,
I did get I talked to one of our vendors and they're confident that the chassis would not be even available until 8 to 12 months out, which would be the first payment that would have to be made.
yeah, we've never,
To give you a little clearer on time.
And what's the payment schedule likely to be like on this?
They usually do thirds depending on the vendor. When the chassis is delivered, then as they're building it and then final delivery. So it was about thirds for the rescue.
Chris and I went to Stanford to have a conversation on the command center, and he told us they were asking for 100% cash up
Yeah,
front.
some were
Have you
asking
heard of that?
100%.
What were they asking?
100% cash up front,
No, I didn't hear that one
With,
yet.
with no guarantees.
with no guarantees you're gonna get what you wanted when you ordered it.
Yeah, don't bring that. up.
That's no, because,
Well, the vendor we used for the rescue did not say that
All
when
right.
we were with him
All
last
right.
week. So
okay, all right.
Yeah, that would not
Yeah.
be popular, but so it would be, at the earliest would be at the end of, kind of the middle of.
A year from now.
This next.
A year from now,
Yeah.
yeah.
probably at least a year from now.
But if you can put the order in and you don't have to put 10% down or anything to hold it? Okay.
The one vendor I talked to
All right.
said 1/3 when the chassis is delivered.
But you're saying that's
A year from now.
12 months out.
It'd be a year out.
Okay.
Yes.
So it would come in next fiscal year. We'd
Part
have
of
to
it.
pay for it.
Correct.
Part of it this year.
So we gotta put part of it into this budget.
You could put 300,000 in.
Yeah.
No, you need the whole thing in to queue it up, right? Yeah,
We wouldn't need to put it into
this
bond
budget,
because I wouldn't bond until next year, which wouldn't affect until 20.
But he needs,
Oh,
How would you
so-
pay for delivery?
How
That's-
do you-
So
how
we
you
pay
get the
for
30?
delivery out of general funds?
So we typically have.
So you would bond to reimburse the town for fronting.
We can do it up front or we.
I
can
like
do it
that.
but
That
you,
makes
do we need to have it in for you to have the authorization to order it?
Yeah.
Authorization
Yeah,
in place,
so-
not the bonding. We need the
Yeah,
authorization.
right.
Yeah.
well, that we're gonna approve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay, so that was more the question, the authorization. for-
And what we heard on on Sunday.
That's
Yeah,
what we heard
okay.
Sunday.
Okay, good. So that's the answer on that. Any other questions on fire? You had a few items low,
Low.
nice to have.
Right.
I don't think they added up to, I mean,
They're
it's
not.
not even anything.
Yeah, it was about
$90,000. So, it doesn't feel like those are deferred. I would, you tell us. If you want to defer them, you can defer them.
Like definitely, if the only one I would not defer was that is the SCBA. That was the one I was wavering on, but the fire hose replacement, we did not lose that much hose in hose testing this year, so that 10,000 can be deferred. That's not an issue. And then the staff vehicle, we can defer because the position's not.
Well, there you
full
go.
yet.
Why don't you do that? Okay, makes sense.
That's fair for me.
And on the hose, if something happens in May or June, you need,
But we got a very good deal on this year, so we're ahead of the game.
Okay, good.
What we
Okay.
replaced.
So the staff.
So those two things come out, Josh.
Yeah.
okay,
That's 75.
That's great.
Okay.
All right.
excellent. Any other questions?
Next.
Okay, thank you.
You.
Great job. Let's see, who's next? Russ? We'll talk in a second. So let's skip the vehicle for a moment. Any on the other items?
Small change.
Well, no, not the radios.
Well, radio, right, but
The radios was the
Those are
one that I said if
controlled.
there is any, because we're attempting to prevent a future large capital outlay when we hope, in theory, if we move to the state system. That being said, it's just units that right now would have been allocated to probably the school law enforcement officers, just so they'd have the multi-band. They wouldn't have to carry 2 radios around them. Speak on the public schools radio network, but again, can be deferred.
How about the body armor? And I asked you that again because it's like, it's coming in this department, but it's to serve. I mean, have you talked to the EMS? Do they want the body
As
armor?
of their Board of Governors meeting, they are on board and wish to participate in the training program. And in my discussions with Bill Ackley, who is the training coordinator for the region, we intend to do that early this year.
Okay, I'm sorry. Wait, our EMS people, you
Yes.
talk to them, they think they need this? And to me, it seems like it's just, if they need it, it should be in their budget. That it's like, if it's for EMS or if it's for fire, it seems like it should be in their budgets. That's just my, because they're going to be dedicated to those 2 groups.
That's correct. And again, as we've gone through these, various groups are prioritizing their requests. This is a town need and a department-wide interdepartmental training, which is the training and equipment that is used in response with multiple departments. And our peers are at this level and we are not. And when it comes to providing safety and the confidence for our first responders, heaven forbid we end up in a situation where we have a act of violence, wherever it might be, that they feel safe operating in that environment.
I think it's 2 questions. One, is there a need for the EMTs to have the body armor? I think the point is you've identified the need, and talking to others, they have it.
Yes, and hopefully it
Your
never
question
uses
is, why is it in his budget and not in the EMS? I don't know if it matters. I mean,
Well, I just,
we can put it over there. We can move it over there.
no, I'm just, if it's, I'm just surprised. If it was a need, I'm not sure why it didn't come from.
Because he had it, I think is the answer.
That's correct.
Yeah,
How's this comparable to other towns?
they have them.
They all have it? I
It's
don't remember
a
this coming out.
majority do, like Wilton does. It depends. A lot of it is also dependent upon whether the first responder organizations, in particular fire, are comfortable doing it, whether their unions and through negotiations have accepted this kind of expansion of roles. But by and large, there was a large grant program a long time ago that a lot of departments did pick this up with. So that's why we're
We
recommending it.
missed out on that.
It would, I can't speak to whether we missed out on it or whether we
I
weren't
just
there
don't
yet
remember this.
in
Yeah.
people's comfort, that this
Well,
was
I
a reality,
think there's
unfortunately.
been
is
a-
something that-
Bit of a surge of
Well, that-
first responders being put at risk. Right?
Yeah, And if you look from 2000 and now, there were 2 acts of mass shootings and it has increased every single year up to now where you had 64 last year per annum. I mean, it's just a continual increase. So it's not like, unfortunately, nationally, this is going away. I wish it was, but it isn't.
We don't have any of those on our,
Our police
fire-
officers have armor, fire and EMS do not.
you
You need
do,
'em?
you don't have them and
I talked to the emergency management director when we were working on this, as my assistant chief, we decided to put it in his budget. That was our discussion, so I can answer
Okay,
Ms. Charles' question. Yeah,
Alright.
that's why it's not mine and it went into Russ.
So where would these be kept so that everybody could use them?
exactly.
That's at the discretion of the captain of EMS and fire. Our regional partners have seen that and Wilton is an example, just using that one because it's off the top of my head. They keep them on the engine and they have them there because you never unfortunately know when something might occur
They keep them where?
on the engine, on the first due apparatus. And the same would probably go for EMS. They have to find the right compartment space because you can't go back to headquarters, say you're out for the road, out on the road getting a sandwich or something. You don't want to have to
Something
go
comes up.
back to headquarters to grab it to come back.
And how many pieces are
Yeah, I
you
was
getting here?
I was gonna
It's
ask you.
4
that too.
per, 4
Four per department.
4 vests, 4 helmets per department. So
So-
total of 8,
So fire will have 4 and EMS will have 4.
correct? Which when I talked to EMS, I thought initially they would only want 3 because they have a paramedic, an EMT and a driver. But she did ask for 4 in case there was an additional first responder coming to meet with that team. Whereas our career staff, our first due on a fire department is an engine of 4 and a company of 4.
Okay.
Now, just one more question on the radio.
Yeah.
On the list here, it says this is a contractual obligation 3 of 5, so you can't defer this.
No, the Motorola hardware and software agreement is a contract we've signed. So we have to do that. I'm talking about
Number
the
6,
bottom
the
issue,
bottom
which
of
is the Motorola tri-band
Oh, yeah,
radios.
okay.
where was this
Okay,
contract
I see.
before?
Sorry.
Was it with fire, police or separate?
The Motorola.
No, it's
No,
been with
but
emergency
where was it?
management.
Where's
It's-
it been booked before?
It was emergency management had it subsequent to, we had a year where we had a single agreement in place with Northeastern Communications directly after the public safety radio system had been upgraded as part of a much bigger capital project that was led by Stuart Salvini and others. So we had 1 year where Norcom was doing it, but we weren't getting software or hardware upgrades. It was basically just 24/7 tech support. And then subsequent year, that was when the agreement was signed and agreed upon.
Okay, I do remember the discussion. I just don't remember where it was. It was.
Yeah, it was in emergency
it was-
management.
Okay. All right.
Because we've also felt that emergency management and agreement with and discussions with the chiefs that, you know, it makes sense that something like public safety radios, bits and pieces of it were owned by different organizations. Some of it was owned by Fire. Fire would pay for one radio site's modem and police would pay for something else. And instead of that, we proposed and agreed upon that this should move into a sort of a centrally managed function where we can look at it strategically and see where should we be and try to find cost savings, which we are. So in fact, we're
This
looking
is
to.
down.
Yeah, well, and it's the price of the contract is fixed, so that doesn't
Yeah.
change, but we're finding ways to improve and leverage existing internet connections and things at sites to try to save us money on modems and things like that. Plus, the longer term is the discussion I brought before, which is the possibility of moving to the state system. And I don't know enough about it. We're doing research. I actually have my first meeting with the regional emergency communications team starting tomorrow. And Wilton and Norwalk are both doing it as we speak. So we also get to learn some lessons from how it goes for them.
Would that be in this next fiscal
No.
year if you, it would?
No, not until the end of this
evolve over
contract at the
next year?
earliest.
Okay.
And it's not in my 5-year capital outlay because we don't know enough currently.
EMS has an ambulance. Let's not forget that on our list,
Oh, yeah.
just to make sure. So we want to make sure that was in the original. We talked about that. That's fine. One question for you, repairing of the current command trailer. What's
Yes.
the estimated cost to keep it bubble gum and baling wire for 2 more years?
We
Because you're
can't.
not, because even if
fix-
you got a command, you wouldn't have it for 2 years. So
Right.
keep it operational. What could you do?
Very difficult to estimate because we can't fix the roof, and the roof is the principal problem where we have a leak in discussions with Neil and the team down at Highway. It's not really something that's reparable. I think at this point, we're going to buy a big tarp probably and put it over the top of it, at least so that we keep the water out of the radios and the telephones.
See, that's fixable.
At least for now. And then,
You got to be able to fix a leaky roof. I'm sorry.
yeah, I'll bring it back.
$10,000? Is it, lots of Bondo? I mean, there's,
Duct
I'm
tape.
not going to be cute about it. I mean,
No, understood.
you got to fix a roof if we're going to have it. We have it for 2 more years, whether we approve the other one or not.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will revisit that discussion. Last time I was met with, it's not something you should invest any money or try to fix.
Tiger, I mean, you have a thought on that in terms of just making it operational to fill a gap, whether we have a new one or not? We have it. We own it. We don't,
Right, we were thinking if they're gonna be replacing it, we didn't really.
sure.
Conducting it.
Because my men said it's not really worth it. I can go back and talk to them and say, you know, what is the art of the possible? We had to, if we had to live long years, what's the art of the possible?
Well, because of the lead time.
You're gonna.
After-
We're gonna be doing it anyways.
Anyway,
That's the point.
so you have to fix
Yeah, it's
something.
done.
Yeah.
You've got to do something. to
And
it.
I know that the team at PD who've been doing the inspections have been doing a good job keeping it going as best they can, but
Bondo or
I
tar.
think you need to think
we'll
about what that
revisit
might-
it given,
what it
the
might be. 'cause
given
you-
the discussion
Yeah, okay.
forthcoming. Yes.
All right, okay. Any other questions? Oh, the fuel trip, any other questions on any of the other items before we get to the command unit? Okay. Okay, so on the command unit. Let me give a little debrief of what we heard, Chris?
Yeah.
So we went to Stanford, as we said last week, we want to go see what they had. They have a 1984, correct?
Who's they?
Stanford, sorry,
Box.
Stanford EMS,
Okay.
1984
The box was from 84, yeah.
box. Very impressive. Reagan administration. And a renovated pickup truck
A
or
new-
truck
new-
front
newer pickup truck, yeah.
550 something. So it's really a refurbished ambulance. And they did a great job. What it is, it can run, it's separate. The truck cab from the box are separate, so they can make sure that they're managing the box. They've got a generator in there. It looks like a workstation. The making jokes about the 1984 box, the irony was it was all full of wood. That's what all the structures were inside, all the cabinetry and everything else, so they could unbolt it and take it out. Today, it's all fitted aluminum and metal. You can't necessarily carve one out and empty it as easily as you could rebuild that one. So no, anyway, they've got an ambulance, retrofitted ambulance solution, and it seems to work just fine. They were very supportive of that idea. And Darien has the same?
They do, and it's sort of it's a quasi incident command, but yeah, basically they did the
Similar.
same thing. They didn't
Yeah.
strip out the
Yeah.
the cabinets and things because as he was mentioning before, everything's welded now. It's not like they were
Yeah.
built when Stanford got lucky keeping that 84 box. That was it.
So I would remind everybody, it's not the first vehicle on site at an emergency. You know, it's probably almost the last one on site for an emergency. And if they had to be there for a while, they would be set up to do it. And I don't think they use it very often, and if very often for emergencies. It's however, well used. I think he said almost every week, a few times a month, for all the various town. You can imagine all the town gathering 100,000 people at the parade for Thanksgiving. That, you know, they've got a command center there. They've got a lot going on in that town. Obviously, we don't have.
And it's one of
and some
three
big
in
numbers.
Stanford.
Yeah.
Just to be clear,
And
it's
it's-
one of 3 units.
Yeah,
Fire
great.
has their own and PD has their own, but of course a much bigger city.
So what I asked Russ to do after that meeting was to come back with a plan B. I think we're all struggling with a $400,000, $380,000 item. And we can't have it for 2 years if we were to order it today.
Yeah.
Appreciate that there's ARPA money for it, but that's not the reason to buy something like this. But I've been sold on the idea that having a command center makes a lot of sense, and talking to chief and thinking about it. Maybe it's a nice to have, but if we could refurbish the ambulance that's coming off, you know, in 2 years that we're replacing, maybe that's an answer or something like that. That's maybe not with the way that the cabin's configured. Maybe that isn't the way to go. Maybe there's an ambulance to buy that we could retrofit. So anyway, I was asking you to look at maybe options for this, because we like the idea. We don't like the amount of money for what it is.
Understood. And obviously with 2 days. that's
I
tight.
should summarize that. I'm not speaking for the board. I think that was a summary of all the comments I heard.
On the ambulance, just one more note. It depends on the configuration of the ambulance. So the newer ones that are chassis and body together.
Like a van.
Van type.
That's not a good
right.
retrofit
That's right.
because the electrical systems are entirely dependent
That's right.
on the same source. And so what you want is to be able to separate the two. So with that caveat, getting an older machine somewhere that would fit our needs, that has 2 distinct parts to it, so we don't have the electrical system of one draining the electrical system of the other, is probably the solution. So I think the ambulance coming off our service
Won't work.
Might not work.
Likely not work.
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
Based upon the discussions and what we've spoken with peers. And then also in discussion, I've called a number, even before Sunday, the number of people who do the retrofit work because of the problems with the boxes is very limited to none. So it really comes down to finding a used truck
Mhm.
and building a new box to go on a used truck. My cursory search on Monday to today, there were 0 anywhere I could find incident command vehicles for sale anywhere. I could not find a single one scouring the internet, and I wish if anybody could find one, please let me know. However, there are definitely plenty of big cities that go through the type 1 ambulances, the pickup truck ambulances. The
Okay.
problem is now finding one that doesn't have 100,000 miles in New York City where it's at end of life. And then the expense becomes find the right truck, which is a mission, which we can do, and then find someone who's willing to make that body, that custom body for the back of it. The reality though is, and I look, it's a trade-off, is you're talking about a used vehicle with 40 to 60,000 miles. And when we were talking about bonding the project, you're not necessarily going to get a 20-year lifespan out of it because now you've got something that another agency has said has reached end of life. So just for
1984,
consideration.
1984 truck.
Yeah.
So thoughts for Russ. I mean, one option here, team, is we just defer this decision as we evaluate that other option and what, why make a snap decision just because nothing's available on March 8th? Who cares? We'll wait 6 months or whatever it might be, and things could come along. We might get a little more knowledge on what other options might exist.
I think we keep working it though. I mean,
Keep working it.
defer it or postpone it, whatever you want to call it. I just think we keep working it. If that's
We-
amenable to everybody.
I think we'll decide whether we need it or we don't need it, not based on ARPA money. Unfortunately, that's why there aren't any available, by the way, right? That's what
Not
the
entirely,
country
also
did.
supply chain issues, but I know that's
All,
across the
all,
board.
well, all part of the
Um,
same
Stewart
problem.
did some digging and talked to, because we went back to the trailer mode and asked several companies that do trailers, but one, everything was in the, surprisingly, in the 24-foot trailer was 260, 240, higher than even I estimated it was going to be. So part of it is that, and so look, maybe we defer for a bit. We see if I can find a used vehicle, talk to some more people who've done that. Most people don't buy other towns' used vehicles because they don't know the
Sure.
history of it,
Of
unlike
course.
where we
Sure.
would with our own
Sure.
stuff.
Sure.
Wait, so are you, would you use like one of those Sprinter vans or high top Sprinter vans?
We looked
Or
at
it
those.
has
They
to
were
be a
250. No, we looked at the Sprinters. Norwalk has one actually as a community policing vehicle.
Because
Um,
the Sprinter vans I think Ford has a transit van with a high top that
Cool.
they go up to 170 inches or even longer, right?
Correct. Yeah, they were in the 240 to 270 range from everybody I talked to for a converted Sprinter van for as a command vehicle. Problem is it gets tight in there. You get probably 2 workstations out of it and then storage. And it's a squeeze. A lot of people we heard they're better as community policing, and actually part of what we were hoping for this vehicle as well was for investigations. They're very nice for investigations because it's small, it's easy, gets into places. So certainly, again, we'll refloat it with our committee and see if that's something they, given a smaller footprint would.
Yeah, because I
would be
actually
amenable
reached
to.
out to one of those converters and they said that like a long Sprinter van, they can convert for like $80,000 or $90,000.
I
No
haven't-
electronics, but power, diesel engine, generator, all that.
Have they done command vehicles? Because that's surprising, because I've spoken to probably 15 different manufacturers, but I would be
Yeah,
happy
they
to.
have pictures of
Sure,
the ones
okay.
that come. So we just.
Again,
touch
let's keep
base.
looking.
Yeah, we'll
I-
just touch base later.
I think we like the idea of having it for when we might need it, but at that price, I think it's just going to be a bridge too far. What can we do with the ambulance that's coming off in a couple of years? Can that be repurposed for, what would you recommend we do with that when it comes out?
I mean, I know for a fact that the CERT team has been clamoring for some
That's a
sort of
good
an
idea.
asset. I mean, Wilton has given one for years, and that wouldn't require any reconfiguration.
That's a good
You
idea.
could stay exactly the same cabinets and everything that's
Right.
in there, and
I
they
like
could
that.
use
And
that.
we own it.
leverage it.
And we
And
own it.
instead of giving it away for,
We own it.
5,
Peanuts, yeah.
10
We
or
own it.
$15,000.
Good idea.
The trick is, just like anything, is we ideally, we'd want to have a home for it, because sitting outdoors, these things degrade. But the reality is, for $10,000 or $15,000, why throw it away when a team could use it
Okay.
in response?
That's a good idea. So a suggestion then would be to defer the unit, continue to look at options.
Yeah.
We will not spend the 130. And I think if everyone's okay with this, we would just put the 250 ARPA money back in the pot for other ARPA
Yeah.
things. Now, we don't have anything from the committee to approve tonight. That really goes back and gets reconsidered.
Yeah, we do have we do have to vote on the ARPA for.
That's different.
the-
Playhouse.
The Playhouse, I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
separate item. Yes, yes, yeah, for
Just
sure.
Making sure you knew that.
Yes, for sure. Okay.
Just.
Is everyone okay with that idea?
Just a thought, because I don't remember if we
Well,
discussed.
Charles,
this.
you go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, go,
You go ahead,
if
Judy.
there were, God forbid, a school incident, where would this vehicle be at the school, on the premise, in front of which, especially the larger schools?
I don't want to speak in
Or-
tactics
how
because it
does
would
that
be PD
work?
incident. But I would say that initial response, they're dealing with the incident. Longer term, it's a crime scene, just like anything else, and would be involving not only that vehicle, but state police would be there, and every government agency you can imagine
Would they
with
want it?
with assets like this.
But would they want it there? Would it
I-
physically be a?
I would hope so, but I don't want to speak to
I just-
the police's.
They would not. Okay, well, I think that's worth considering.
I just want
Yep.
to maybe put a little bit of color around, keep working it, because what we're not saying, unless I
Mhm.
misunderstood, is we're not saying, go look at this and come back next year's budget season, right? Because if that were true, then we'd be asking Tiger to figure out how to get 3 years out of that trailer, not 2, right? So
Understood.
what we're asking you to is, go back, work it, come and talk to us. And if it makes sense, it doesn't matter ARPA or no, if we see the need and it's a good price, well, then we'll go ahead and we'll do a special at that time.
Understood.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's the point.
Okay. Michael or Colm, any comments? Or Bob? I think Bob's on.
No, I think that sounds like a good plan, and I do think that this would be a good investment by the town over time. And that we're not saying it won't happen, just looking at it more carefully. So I support that.
I think the idea of
I
not
do.
letting the ambulance go is a good idea. CERT has, I don't think, any assets, and they've got a lot of volunteers, and it's a big group in town. So, it seems like used equipment should be treated, as a valuable asset.
No, I agree. That's a good idea, Russ.
Yeah, I agree with both of them.
Okay. Anything else for Russ?
Hey, just Russ, on the fuel trailer, that can happen, you can pick it up on the quicker side. I'm just, it doesn't have the super long
Well,
lead time.
last we talked
You
to
never
him,
quite know, do you?
last we talked to him, was it 2 months ago, Tiger? He said he had them in stock, but that was 2 months ago. So we haven't talked. That's the tough part. You get their price, and
Yeah.
then our budget process takes some time. So,
Okay.
but last he said he had them.
All
It's
right.
not motorized, so that makes it
It's a
easier.
little
It's
less
just a
complicated, yeah.
trailer and a.
That's true. Okay, thank you very much.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Tiger, I think you're up.
I got kind of cut off.
Yeah.
Who's covering IT, health department, capital, all that? You don't have all that.
Well, the health department I could answer, but
I don't think there are any, I'm not sure there are any questions. There wasn't really much, but there were some questions for IT, some hardware, some software.
Is this on the
Yeah,
tablet?
sorry, it's kind of cut off. Those are all removals by Tiger, not a priority list.
Where's that list?
Is it on here or is this the only version?
Page. It's in the clip.
it's all good.
The numbers are there.
Yeah. All right. I have to see what's up here.
And IT. And same thing for,
Here.
we have the townwide reval.
Sebi, that's mandatory.
I think it's all fine. I'm just asking because I don't want to miss anything, but those are already in here. Yeah, okay, good.
Tiger's cat.
We'll go through it Thursday, but I don't think there are any questions
I
about
don't
it.
want to go over tomorrow with them
Okay, we ready?
judged.
Okay, so Tiger, I asked all the departments to come back with their thoughts and cuts, and this is yours. You want to walk through this real quickly, or anybody have any questions about them?
Well, I can walk through it a little bit and then you can have
Yeah,
questions, I guess.
Sounds good.
The,
Let's
can we,
walk. Let's walk
Can't
through
read
it.
them.
sorry,
Well,
the,
some of it is a little.
I was hoping to walk back to operating for a half a moment, if that's all right,
Yeah.
because you asked about energy too, so I got.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
So, so first, we were asked for a sewer use study.
Right.
That was
Yes.
your other hat. The WPCA asked for that hat.
I forget.
We had $25,000 in our engineering budget. We planned to cut that out of the operating budget. And we were able to find $25,000 in an unused account from a project for the wastewater plant from 2018, which was part of a facilities plan. It was phase one of a facilities plan back when we were thinking about we were going to need something for phosphorus and zinc.
Right.
Then we were able to make permit with chemicals, so we no longer needed that. That money sat there. That's $25,000. What I'd like to do is utilize that money for the study, save $25,000 on the operating.
Here.
Okay,
That's
well done.
Yeah.
that's that's going to help me for the next one. So
to measure sewer capacity? Is that what that's?
we already, well, yes, it'll help study our entire system. But we had our consultant go out and already do a capacity study. Actually, there was a study done previously and then one was just finished late last year as part of the applications that are currently in front of the land use departments, in front of P and Z. And we just finished our I&I study, our inflow and infiltration study at the plant. We had a draft report that we're working through right now with a plan of attack moving forward. And in the sewer budget, we have a $500,000 item for phase one of that. It's actually two parts. Basically, we're blanketing at $1 million, 500 and 500. 500 for the 24 year, 500 for the 25 year. And the numbers that we're getting back as far as what the project will look like are very close to that at present. So, but once we finalize that report, then we'll share it with the WPCA. But that gives you the first, that first phase. Then you asked about energy as far as
Right.
electricity, fuel oil, gas, diesel. And looking at the numbers that we have overall in the budget, we should be fine on the fuel oils. Electricity, we're going to be a little lagging. Our contract at present ends December 31st of 23. So we have half a year in the fiscal year where we're paying 8 cents.
Mhm.
We don't know what the distribution costs are going to be from Eversource. That's an unknown for us. And then we're looking at right now pre-buying for a couple of years out on the electricity side, and the numbers are somewhere around 12 cents. Stanford, I think, just locked in at 18. And we were getting numbers back of 12 and 13 from our consultants. So with the problem that's still a 50% increase off of 8 cents, right? So that's somewhere on the order of about $100,000 that we're looking at. What we were contemplating was having you put that into contingency, and then we could draw from that and put it into the accounts that we needed versus trying to spread it across all the boards, all the departments that have an electrical account. And that'll also take into account some of the areas where we've instituted solar, where we've put in a CHP unit, where we're actually starting to see a savings overall. But we think that might be a good guard against numbers going forward. And then it's in the contingency. And if we need it, we come and we ask. And if we don't need it, then it stays there. We think that might be the better avenue for this year. And then we are looking at purchasing. We typically purchase gasoline around this time of year, and then the heating oil, fuel oils in the summer. But we're usually a year ahead, so we're actually a year behind. So we'd like to buy gasoline going forward for the year, and then this summer buy our heating oil either for a year or 2 years out, and then catch ourselves back up again, so that when we come back for a budget, we already have a hard number because we have a contract associated with it. COVID kind of threw a little bit of a wrinkle in stuff that was happening across overseas. But that kind of gives you an idea of where we are for electrical, and energy.
What does that do to change our operating? And are your assumptions covering what you just went through? Or are you feeling like you're?
At present, you
Yeah,
already
I
gave
mean,
us monies to get through to 23.
We had
end of the year.
10%, remember, generally as a.
That
full
10%,
placeholder.
we're thinking that 10% will be okay across the board for the fuel oils, but it won't be for electricity. The electricity we're looking at,
Yep, okay, I just want to make sure I understand.
like I said, it's a 50% increase just on the on the supply side, and distribution, we don't know. So
I'm
overall, we're
surprised you
saying
think
that
it's gonna be up 10% from last
Wow.
year. I mean, gas has to be lower.
well, but we were starting from a lower
A year
point
ago?
prior. Yeah. So the numbers that we had were from a lower number in the year prior. So she spiked and she came back down, but we feel that across the board, all in, we'll be fine on those numbers at that 10%.
Did you follow the contingency idea? You okay with that as a way of managing it? Okay, all right, okay.
All right,
What
so
about diesel?
I'm sorry.
What?
Diesel's the same. Diesel spiked and is starting to come back down again. And then that's sort of like a heating oil where we purchased that in the summer. So we'll hope that that'll come back down again. We had a bad run early on in the fall, to the late summer to late fall was a really bad time for us. That was when it was up around $7 a gallon. That was that hurt, so that was double of what we actually had budgeted, actually over 2 times what we had budgeted. So what winds up happening is you get half the fuel that you need, but we're still going to need the entire amount of fuel. So we have less money to buy at a higher price, and it compounds on itself. I can go to capital now if you'd like.
Just on the operating,
Sure.
so Ann, in the contingency idea, so Tiger would just need to tell you where he needs it, and you would,
At that,
Cool.
yeah, well, we would come back for a
And-
transfer.
that mechanic won't impair your ability to be able to track where that money actually went, so that when we do catch up and we have real numbers and real prior year numbers that aren't distorted, we'll be able to tell what's what.
We'll be able to dump into the account that we need it in.
Yeah.
I'd
Really,
Okay,
That
yeah,
sounds
okay,
good.
all right.
I also think it's easier on Josh's side too, to go to one number because.
One of our goals. I didn't state that in my opening
Begging me
remarks,
before,
but
so
making it
it's like,
easier
don't
for
change
Josh
anything.
was
Don't
one
change
of
the
our,
number, so.
one
I
of
was
our
like,
guiding
okay.
principles for this year.
So that means we're gonna increase our contingency number
From
by
300
to 4, right?
I think that would be best, yeah.
Okay.
But the budget for Advil.
It's overspent already. The, as far as the capital side goes, the, what we looked at overall is I looked at whether or not I could utilize some existing accounts or accounts that I have to carry over some of them, or take care of some of the projects. So at Lapham Center, we have a drainage problem. We had $25,000 in there to take care of the drainage problem. I'm also going to take care of the parking lot. At the time I take care of the parking lot, I'm going to take care of the drainage. So I said, well, we'll just cut that item out. That's $25,000 of tax supported capital. So that's actually a better number. In the Waveney Lodge, we had monies for ADA requirements, but I put in a blanket for the
Right,
500.
right.
So at that point in time, I consider that double billing. So we'll get that out. That's, that's another. The lamp post project at Waveney, we had $280,000 because we felt like we were chewing away at it at $50,000, but we're not getting yet. That gets us less than 10 lampposts, right? If we buy them at $5,000 a piece, it costs us $1,000 to put them up. We're out of the 50 or so lampposts, it's going to take us forever to get through the entire project. So we decided was to lump it all together into two years, 280, but we can certainly wait and just put it out. So instead of being in 24, 25, we'll put in 25, 26. The lampposts are functioning, they're fine, and we can move things around as far as when we get new ones
Goes
in,
out,
we can move
yeah.
them around. If one falls, or comes out of service, we can figure out a way to make that work for a year.
Okay.
The animal, then I'll skip that for a second. The Audubon House at $200,000, still haven't gotten an answer per se from the Nature Center. I feel if they can come back with a valid plan as to how they want to attack that, and with a capital plan or a plan for revenue and what they want to do with it, then we can come back and visit that at that time. But at present, I'd just rather see it be deferred.
Do you need a demolition number on that one?
I need at some point in time, I need a TARP number is what I need. The,
Blue tarp.
right. Then I had $50,000 for traffic signal replacement on an engineering basis. That can wait a year. The signals are working. We're repairing another one tomorrow. They're working, they're fine, but we're looking at in a couple of years, they're going to be 20+ years out and they're going to need replacement, but I don't have to need the money now for a project that would happen in 2-3 years.
Right.
So we can take that out. Again, I that's a tax supporter, which is nice. The repair the blacktop area around the containers, that's at the transfer station. Again, I'll take that out of my parking lot money at 24,000. So I'll just make sure that work gets performed out of my parking lot money, since it's basically a large parking lot. And then we deferred on Connor Field $1 million, given the fact that the NCAF is coming forward with a project of theirs. It's still a very viable project. It's a very good project. It's just, I don't think it's the right time for it, to be perfectly honest with you. I think given everything else, all the other things that are being looked at, as far as what the NCF is coming forward with the Dunning Stadium and then Capo Field, I think, one baseball field at a time is plenty. So we can certainly push Connor Field out. And then the last one was a combination of we have 2 incinerator buildings. You're aware of it. We have 2. So we had the decommissioned one and then the decommissioned one. So what we had in there was a study for one to knock it down, and then the other to knock it down and remediate. Right. So one, we just have to necessarily knock it down into its foundation, and the other one, knock it down and remediate it. You asked us to come forward with more of a study or a plan. When I sat here at that time, I was saying, oh, $25,000 should do it. I went back, talked to my staff, and they were like, $75,000 will do it. So I said, okay, $75,000 to get me a plan to see exactly what we want to do, how we're going to be able to handle the 2 projects. So what I did was I took the animal control shelter monies out at $50,000 because that was tax supported. And so we'll get rid of that. And then I reduced the incinerator building one from 325 to 250. So in essence, I got $75,000 left, but I gave back 300 in total, 250 and 500, and kept 25. If you follow that mathematics, I guess it works.
So
somewhere
you
around there.
need what, then
So
75?
the incinerator building demo engineering would stay at $75,000. And that will give me enough to come forward with a master plan and an idea as to how much it would cost us to then reutilize that area, get rid of those buildings. What do I do on top of the highway department? And then what can I put there in its stead? Salt dome, another animal care building, swap shop, things of
Makes
that nature.
perfect sense, yeah.
Other parking areas, if we can find other areas for storage for other vehicles for Yeah, police and fire and EMS, we can certainly do that. Right now, it's just, if you go out there, the grades are all terrible. There's nothing works. And it's very hard. We've paved everything we possibly can to try to give ourselves as much room. But it's still, if I can knock it down and make it all flat, it would be way better. So that was the overall thought, was to then go back to the drawing board, come back with a plan and tell you exactly how much it's going to be. And we can phase that in at that time. So that kind of gives you the overall. So I think that the overall 1.9. Right?
So on the traffic signal replacement,
Mhm.
does that contemplate taking existing traffic signals that don't have like sensors that are just timed and replacing them with more technologically advanced ones?
That's an excellent question. So what we have right now is we have a project to come forward for 8 of the signals in town to put in audible pedestrian signals there, right? So that you can actually hear them. And they have a countdown timer and they would bring them up to speed. We own 2 lights in town. We own the 2 lights on Park Street. And those have been here since I've been here. And I've been here 23 years and I don't know when they were put in. I can't find out when they were installed. So, but I know that eventually they're going to go and they're going to have to be completely replaced at that point in time. So the $50,000 is just an engineering cost to come forward with the design to go out to bid to replace both facilities.
So Park Street currently doesn't have sensors in those traffic.
We have loop detectors. So, but nowadays what they're going to is video detection, right? So TV detection. So the loop detectors sometimes fail. The car doesn't sit on it correctly. I don't know if you've ever been behind a car that didn't travel all the way to the stop, bar, and then you have to wait because the traffic signal doesn't understand that you're sitting there waiting. Now they're going to a video one where it's a camera. So you drive up, the camera sees you, and then it'll turn the light for you at that point in time. It's much more energy efficient as far as it goes for just the traveling public, because the light won't cycle unless someone's sitting there. So it'll stay green on the predominant travel way and then change when somebody drives up to it. The state's starting to go to it. They did Lakeview Avenue and 123, and it made a marked change for the people who actually live in the Hoyt Farm area. There's a gentleman who lives on the top who had to listen to cars and trucks grinding their gears all the time late at night because they had to stop at the light. He says his quality of life changed completely. He knows when the car drives up and he can see the light change, and then the light changes again, it's over. So the car drives up from Lakeview Avenue,
That's cool.
senses it, changes it, and then changes it back to green. So 123 stays current and you don't have to worry about it.
So if you defer this traffic signal replacement 50K, is that gonna make or push the project out?
It'll push it out a year. Yeah.
I would say keep it in there.
I can, I just, I was asked to look and I was like, I think I can, I know that they can wait, it's just, I just don't know how long they can wait, let's put it that way. Right now they're functioning, I have a
Well, I
couple of
live on
problems.
Park Street, so.
Oh.
Faster.
Better recuse yourself.
Yeah, I can tell you that if they got to the point where they were costing us too much money, then I would say, okay, I need to, I gotta go study it and we gotta go forward.
We don't manage public works. This is your decision.
I'm
If
fine
you
with
want
it.
it, we
I'm
would
fine
keep
with
the 50. If you think deferred, it's okay, given
fine with
all the other
deferring it.
priorities. Okay.
I'm fine
that's
with it.
good.
Did you put, what did the
It's okay.
library put on the crosswalks? What did the library use as lights for the crosswalk from the parking lot?
The rapid rectangular flashing beacon. So we have sets at Elm Street
got 3 of
and
them.
Weed Street, Weed and Wahackney for Irwin Park. We've got one at, the first one ever we put in was Saks at Farm Road to get across for the children there. Main Street and Farm Road, that intersection, we have one there. We put one at Gower and 106 and 124 at the YMCA. So we have several in town and we asked the YMCA to install one there, similar to one that what we have in town. And we have a couple of that we'll be looking at. One at the Gower Road where the crossing is, the mid-block crossing is at South School that goes to Douglas and that area in Orchard. We're looking at one there. The police commission approved that installation. And then we have another one, possibly Kimberly and Elm that we're looking at. And then another, off the top of my head, 124 in St. John's over by the church, in the Historical Society right there. So we have several that we're still looking at. It's an excellent system.
Yeah.
It has a 92% adherence rate. So,
Wow.
and that's after a year of service. Usually they drop off into the 20s and 30s. This one stays at about 92% because you press the button, it stops traffic, and then you're allowed to walk. Gives you about 10, 20 seconds across the street, then it goes again, and then it opens the lane again. It's like I said, it's an excellent system. We are looking at putting 2 up near Silver Hill. Silver Hill will be paying for those installations. And we'll be putting them there for their patients that walk them back across the street. They could walk back and forth between the campuses. And we think it would be a good idea for all the pedestrian traffic there. Yeah, it's an excellent system.
So what, using 1.9 plus
Mhm.
675 from Board of Ed plus command center. I'm at 2.7. Is that about right? Is that what you have, about 2.7 reduction?
Yeah.
So if you all recall, when we got the budget, we had 49.5 million dollars of capital requested, which included 32.5 for the police building and training, which left us 17 for this conversation. And we said, you know what, we'd like to get in the 15 range, just because if we can really start to have an impact, right? So that takes us from 17 to 14.3, where we are. Now, is there anything else you want to share with us today?
Only other thing I have.
Let's just
So-
hold on to the fact that we were down 2.7 just a minute ago.
Just a minute ago. That's when I gave back the 50,000. Remember, I gave back the 50,000. So
Lead with the good news.
We can
Exactly.
always come back and review it if
Um,
it blows up.
yeah.
Don't worry, it's a transfer. It's not a big deal.
So as we were going forward, on the Playhouse project, we ran into a slight snag. We had originally anticipated, based upon conversations with the previous Bowtie Cinema, that we could reutilize the existing HVAC system. And unfortunately, due to COVID and other things, the fact that the code has changed now, and there's a different amount of air circulation that you have to have in an area of assembly. So our $300,000 estimate for that amount of work jumped to 2.3 million. So that's where we're at, is that, excuse me, given that that's like the only real change, everything else, we're able to pretty much stay within our budget that we had originally planned, a year ago. It's the only item that we had originally anticipated. Like I said, utilizing the HVAC system, we can't utilize the HVAC system. We had it analyzed. It will not give us the amount of clean air and refreshment that we need. It's an R44 system. We have to come off of that system into a new system. And that's based upon the new building code that went into effect in January.
So I'm sorry,
January
so
this year?
What's the what's the increase in the cost?
$2 million.
$2 million.
1.9. It was 2.3 and we had 400.
Yeah.
So 1.9.
million.
Now, I heard, go ahead.
So, right, but there'll be a cost savings, at present. At present, we talked to Cinema Lab, and their original offer at that time was $500,000 to drop that back off. So that brings us to around $1.5 million from where we are.
So the delta is 1.4. So,
Well, 1.5.
or
let's say.
1.5.
Yeah.
Well, I had 2.3 minus 400, that's 1.9 minus 500, 1.4%.
Yeah. There was a little bit of room, a little bit of push on a couple of other
Right.
items. So,
1.5.
Overall, I'm at a 1.5. That's if I added contingency, I'd be at a 1.7.
So what is the new system? What is this new requirement? What is it?
There's a code requirement for new fresh air, and the system that we have doesn't adhere to that. And it's an outdated system. We spoke to the
So our
designer.
budget, sorry to interrupt you. Our budget was to replace pretty much what we had.
Well, it was actually to utilize what we had to, kind of reuse what the system that we had.
Okay.
And then augment from there. We can't reuse the system that we have.
That's the
And
difference.
then the designer, we asked, can we still stay and then, keep it and then try to limp along and then replace it later? Problem is that if we tried to do that, we wouldn't be able to replace the system without actually gutting the building again to try to get the clean air systems that we need. So all the ductwork that we would need, we'd have to gut the building again. There were other aspects of the building that once we went to the demo that we couldn't see, but a lot of the structural elements were changed from the original. They were different during the renovations that went on during the building's lifespan. They cut through some of the some of the spans that they shouldn't have. They cut through some of the bearing walls that they shouldn't have. They cut through a couple of areas that we have to actually replace. So that's in the structural item. That's why I'm saying that the item's closer to a 1.7 from a 1.5. And that's with the cost savings, cost share with Cinema Lab. The
We just
all-in
found
cost share.
$250,000 of ARPA. Can we use that?
We have $600,000 ARPA already, and
I wouldn't. do it.
the
Well-
requirements on ARPA are a little difficult for the way that this project's being handled. So it's a little bit harder for us to then be able to satisfy those requirements. I think I think it would be better served to use that money elsewhere, and where we can satisfy the bidding requirements and other requirements that are there that we probably won't be able to satisfy here.
So we can't do anything with this building if we don't, you're telling me,
No,
Yeah, we're stuck.
without upgrading the HVAC.
that's correct.
So there's no grandfather.
No, there's not. Unfortunately, there's not a clean way out.
Probably because the level of the demo makes this a new project rather than a renovation.
That too, yeah, but it also just comes down to the fact that the system is antiquated and it doesn't provide what the new code tells it
That's the
it has to provide.
So then help me understand, even if we were able to reuse the way we originally planned, what sort of life did we reasonably
years.
expect? Huh?
2 to 3 years. And
So
then we'd
this
be
was going to
back.
be in our budget in 2 to 3 years, even though it would have been the older system that exchanged air at the older rate.
Right.
Okay, but we didn't know that. I'm just saying, okay,
Yeah.
when the cost
Yeah.
of renovating this building and I'm just saying, when it was brought forward, okay, we want to keep the building, this is what it could cost to keep it, right? I had no idea that there was going to be a major cost down the road on this. I mean, it's just,
Well, is the
Wow.
renovated, is the new HVAC requirement a more expensive solution? In other words, if we were going to put in new HVAC
No,
5 years ago and it was $100, is the requirement for the air handling for whatever's COVID new requirements for air circulation, is it a more expensive solution than it was a couple of years ago?
well, yeah, the requirements are much more stringent now for an area of assembly, yes, but given the level of renovation that's going through now, we might have had to go and upgrade that system regardless. So had we upgraded it years ago, we might still have to upgrade it again.
Different question,
I'm sorry.
different question. Had we had to upgrade it several years, that's a great point, actually, by the way. So we could have upgraded it twice. My question is, what is it about the new requirement that's adding cost? Do we know? Is it just better filtration?
Absolutely.
More powerful air circulation to take?
Yeah, the refresh rate is a lot more, you know.
So it's a more expensive solution regardless of whether we did it. And now it wasn't available a few years ago and we didn't have the requirement.
For
There was 200, old Freon, you know, I've used them more, you can't buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you have to upgrade the Freon, change the size of the equipment, change the size and. So if you had run a system 5 years ago, and let's say you had a catastrophic failure to start.
Yeah.
You can't fix it, you have to replace it, even if it was only 5 years ago. That's the new code, that's the EPA.
Well, what was the requirement when we started this, when we went down and did the original appropriation and voted on it?
Well, we
What-
thought we were going to be able to utilize it. Plus the code was different at that time.
Two things.
You have to remember when we were first looking at this, we're a year ago. And then the code changed in January.
Oh,
So that's,
we didn't know that code was gonna change.
We didn't know it was gonna.
When did we find out the code was gonna change?
the designer's been working through the system, trying to determine exactly what he could do with the system. And he finally came forward, was it last week? Last Friday. As a matter of fact, I believe it was, and came forward with that number and said, so you're getting it as close to the time as we got it. Yeah, I still haven't
And
slept.
nobody had
since
any
Friday.
idea this was in the works or
Yeah,
coming
that's
down the
right.
road.
No.
It's all secret in Washington and entitled.
no, but we also had a really old HVAC system here. Okay, and that was not put in. Yeah, but we knew it, but I didn't know it was
I didn't know
gonna,
it was
I didn't know it was
gonna be
gonna go
imminent.
down in a
Yeah.
couple years. So
Imminent.
This is
can I
a-
ask, what
so
is the
This comes out
total,
to be a $2 million
what's the
surprise. is
total
that
cost
what
to
this
fix
is?
this
I
building?
heard 1.5.
Now, including, so the
Because you get
ARPA
$500
$675,
back
right?
From.
Cinema.
Cinema,
We're
because
gonna have
they had
to,
a budget.
For whatever
They're
reason.
gonna kick in 500.
I'm sorry, they're gonna kick in at least 500, if not more. Yeah, so.
Of this
Yeah.
amount or the?
No, the total amount. So the total amount that's required is 2.69. So that's 2.7. We're looking at a cost share from Cinema Lab of 1.26. That brings us to 1.431. I added a contingency of 20% of 286 gets me to 1718. That's the true, that's the numbers that I have sitting in front of me at present. That's an all-in, everything left. Excuse me.
So I just have,
I didn't follow.
to help me focus on this, you have to answer one question of mine because you keep talking about this applying to areas of assembly.
Yeah.
What other areas of assembly might we have in town, in our
Well,
buildings?
I was thinking the same thing. I think I'm sitting in.
Oh,
one.
so I'm just
I
sitting
think
here
I'm pretty sure I'm
that,
thinking I'm sitting in.
I
one.
know I have a movie
Thought
theater
Adams
issue.
As a school one.
Like
This building?
This building is, yeah, depending, you know,
Area
this,
of
this
assembly?
area right here is considered an area assembly, the auditoriums, things of that nature. So when it comes time to renovate, we'll have to take care of that.
So this would be grandfather because we're not doing any work to.
Correct.
I
It's a
see,
moment
but
when
as
you
soon
first
as you,
start,
s-
you spend a certain amount of money.
And the library, when they built the, when they built the
Library.
auditorium, did they know about this or
That I
they
don't
built
know.
on the old system?
That I don't know.
So
I didn't design it.
these
Jeez, oh, wait.
changes just popped in. We didn't know they were gonna, I mean, you can't, it can't possibly work that way that they tell you, January 1st, we switched it without any public input and stuff like that. I mean,
It's not a question of that. It's a question of that we were working towards, a change or a design of the system and realize we can't utilize what we have and then trying to balance what we needed versus what the code was stating. And we came to this conclusion. Well, like I said, the designer came to us with this number last week. I can't fault the designer. He's been working on it for months. So I can't fault him for that. It's just a question
But
of the
it
number that
was
we had
working on it.
originally was a year old.
No,
This was
either.
coming down the pike.
I can certainly go back and say, Larry, you should have let me know that it was,
Yeah.
I was headed in this direction. I'm not happy about that, to be perfectly honest with you, but I can only tell you that when we knew, you knew. Let's put it that way.
And did this catch the cinema lab people by surprise? I mean, they have to come
Well,
up with
they
a big
have to
chunk of
be.
change here. They have to raise more capital or
Yes.
what?
I'm sorry.
Are they gonna have to raise more capital?
I don't know that question. I don't know that answer at present.
But what was the life of the old HVAC system as it was anyway, even without this? You said it was a couple of years, we'd have to probably replace that HVAC anyway.
According to what our contractor is saying, yeah, and our architect,
But then that should be considered in the budget if you knew that, if someone knew
should
that it was
have
only
been
had
the
2 years
original.
left.
the thought is that you might have been able to replace the units. The units might have cost a certain amount of money, but you would have been able to get a couple of years out of them and then replace the units at a lower cost, but we can't replace those units based upon the new code. So we would fall into it at that point. We would either fall into it now or fall into it later. So we fall into it later and it's actually a bigger problem if we fell.
Well,
into it
we
later.
didn't know 2 years ago there'd be a new code, so I can't agree. So we would not necessarily have fallen into the big thing later. We didn't know the rules were gonna change.
so
Right, but if we decided to go down the route that's by keeping the unit, the next time we have to change, we'd fall into that
We
requirement.
will now, but 2
Yeah.
years ago, we didn't know that.
No,
That's my point.
no, that's
So we
correct.
knew
No,
that
it's
we
an
only
old
had 2 or
system.
3 years of life
yeah,
on the
we
old.
Yeah, we only had 2 or
It was a
3.
low
It's an old
cost
building.
solution.
I mean, it's
Well,
ancient.
was there or was it $1 million problem? We just,
No, I
ignored
don't
it.
believe it's, I don't, when the designer, when we put it was a high level estimate, at that time, right? We hadn't opened up a wall, we hadn't done anything. It was basically a high level estimate at that point. Talking to the Cinema Lab, not Cinema Lab, sorry, Bowtie, they had said that the system, would be fine. They had been in the building for forever. They said the system could work. So the designer built that into his budget at 400,000. And that's, it's a bad number looking back on it, but at the time it was the best information that we had.
So Tiger, was, you went through the numbers really fast and I'm sorry.
It's
Was the
okay.
2.7, was that what was gonna cost, we thought, to fix the building, not the
That's-
interior build out?
The problem that we have is we're melding, to give you an idea of everything that we need, we're melding in the Cinema Lab numbers into our numbers combined, since they're gonna have to share some of the costs coming back. So we built in all the costs coming forward to give us how much money we would need to present to you as to how much money we would need, less the contribution from Cinema Lab, and added a contingency.
Okay, but.
If I had to go forward and try.
That's to finish, but because we did the roof, I mean, I'm just curious what the entire cost of this fixing this building is going to end up being, the all-in cost, and then we'll net out the ARPA money, and then we'll net out the Cinema Lab contributions, and that will tell us
Cost to
what,
taxpayer.
what's cost
We'll
for us
we'll have
to
to come
keep
back.
this
I'll have to come back
continued.
with that number.
Because that,
Yeah.
that to me is really kind of,
That's fine.
because
I
we
can,
can't
you-
forget the
if you
roof.
start, yeah, because if you're asking for the roof and for
Yeah.
the exterior, I'll have to come back with that number for you.
You know, I
to
think it'd
give
be
you-
nice to get a complete budget.
Yeah, I
update
think
on
so.
That's
the
fine.
whole
Yeah.
Project.
Well,
That's
fine. Agreed. Of course, nobody likes the surprise. But I'm not sure any of those past things change anything. We've got to have a decision here whether we're gonna fund another $1.5 million for HVAC system for a building we own.
We have any other options?
Doesn't
we
matter
could
what the
look
roof costs.
into?
It doesn't matter what the
We're
roof. I
still
mean, you know,
working
at some
through the
point.
final costs and everything else, and we're hoping that those numbers will come down, you know, as we get further along. But no, there's no, you know,
There's
almost
no way.
all the unknowns are
Yeah.
there. That's why I'm a little skeptical on the 20% contingency that we're asking for at the end. But I don't want to be at a point where I say it's 1.5 and it turns out to be 1.55 and I'm missing $50,000.
Agree, yeah.
I don't like to come back at all. I don't want to do it twice.
What about if you change the nature of the use of the space from an assembly to a non-assembly?
Then it's a whole different set. You don't have a theater anymore.
Not a
That's
theater anymore,
Not a theater
but can you salvage the existing HVAC?
at present now the whole building's gutted, you know, and you'd have to chop it back up again and probably not, because at that point in time, we'd have to figure out where all the air was going to be. You know, if you change it into office space, say it probably wouldn't be suited, it wouldn't be suitable for that. It's a lot more difficult to
That's
satisfy small rooms.
Going to be more money than what it's going to cost us to
Correct.
fix the HVAC.
Right. And then it gets away from its core purpose, which is to have a theater in the middle of downtown. You know, in the end, you know, the revenue generated from the theater in the downtown area almost can't be quantified, you know, but it's in the $1.5 million, $2 million, you know, range from what they say, you know, studies
We'll
have
see.
proven. So
And what about the supply chain on that? Is it
As far as-
available?
as far as
If,
we have a line on the HVAC system right now, meaning that, yeah, we have a hold on it because we're waiting for an answer. I don't want to walk down a $2 million path by buying
Hmm.
materials and then find out that you don't want to walk down that path. So we have a hold on it, but it's available for us. It's just we're waiting to release the order.
and then
But I
just
don't-
to delay construction at all, or?
Well, the longer we take here, yeah, there's a possibility of delaying it further, but right now, like I said, we put a hold on the order because I didn't want to buy HVAC system that we're not going to want to put in, or you're not going to want to put in. So we have to have an idea of what the board wants to do before we then release that. The moment we release that, then in essence, we're either going to buy that amount of material or, and not put it in or buy it and put it in, you know, but we're going to own it one way or another.
Well, we need to make a decision one way or the other Thursday. We can leave it out for today and put it on Thursday. We can leave it in for today and leave it or pull it out, whatever we want to do. You have some questions. I think we have questions overall on what the cost is. Is something you can come back with to us
We
on
can come
Thursday?
back with that. Yeah.
Roof, all the work that's been done, what we had planned, where are we overall?
Changes
But-
that you're
You know,
obviously
who
reading
picked
from
up what,
something
like
that we don't
ARPA?
have.
Picked
Yeah,
up what?
I know.
Where's the
I know.
ARPA
We
contribution?
just
all that.
developed, we've been working on this for a while and we just finished it about 45 minutes
No,
ago.
no, I
an
understand,
hour
but
ago.
if you can
So,
send something along these lines to us, so we
Yes.
can see what
Yeah.
you're looking at.
Tomorrow night or something like
That's
by
fine.
tomorrow, we'll
We can
take a
give you at
look at
least
it.
time to digest. it
Let's
for a day.
digest where we are, all in, everything, ARPA funds, whatever, all that's been done and the capital that's been raised, obviously. Is it on schedule or on time, more or less? Apart from this,
You have a plan. Put that together, given, about supply chain. We know where the equipment is in supply, timeline. And, we've been working very hard on figuring out how to keep things moving along over there, and, a lot of contractors actually do this nowadays. They figure out how to put it back together a little differently, but they go.
all right. Let's, if we do that, Tiger, I think that's just gives us such late breaking news and it's over $1 million. I think we need to have let's have a look at everything and absorb this a little bit. And I hate to drag you back here on Thursday
No, it's fine. I
night,
was
but
planning on being here.
it-
anyway.
it's just, it's too big to just
Yep.
rubber stamp at this point. I think we need to really think about it and then figure out what we're going to do about it because we're already jumped out of the plane on the building. I mean, it'd be fun to climb out back in, but that's not an
What,
option. so.
Tara, what specifically was the ARPA money for in this project?
It was just to help offset the overall costs. No, it
There was
wasn't.
no parameters, there was nothing that was.
It was related to
Community
economic
development,
development.
economic development.
That goes, yeah,
Exactly,
yeah. On
exactly.
the other side, it was just part of the aggregate of how
Exactly.
we funded it.
So this does not fit into economic development,
It
putting in
does.
an HVAC system.
No, it
I mean,
does. The whole project fits
Yeah.
into economic development.
Well,
We
we
just
could
sliced it up into different
consider
places.
ARPA. That's
the-
not all.
Right. The thought is to utilize that amount of money. We have to, there are requirements associated with that on the, not for how it fits into ARPA, but how you utilize it on the backside.
Yeah.
So that, as far as the bidding requirements and things of that nature, those are extensive. Because those come from the federal government down through and they're extensive. So that's why I don't want to piggyback any more money on top of it.
Mhm.
It's-
I'd rather see it go to a project where I can manage a smaller project and jump through every hoop that they have versus putting more on here and might not be able to meet all their requirements and then have monies left over that I can't utilize.
From a committee point of view, what other items were on the list that really weren't able to be considered because we had $47,000 left? And if we were to put 250 back, is there another list of 10 things that people had in mind or that you had?
I have to go back and look. There's certainly, but
So anyway, it could be on the table to include, but I feel like, let's think about that hard because that money could be spent in a lot of other places. I feel like
I would prefer to.
we've
go somewhere else.
concentrated too
I
much
think
there.
Tiger's right.
Yeah,
I prefer to
Yeah,
go
we're
someplace
adding
else, to
on
be
to
honest with you.
600.
I'd rather buy police cars with it.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's
There you go.
another
You
good
know.
Okay.
option. Yeah.
Well, that's another way to look at though, on the overall reduction in
Right.
capital. You just took, you could
Yeah.
take 250 out elsewhere,
That's right.
not there.
Correct.
Okay,
That's,
Good-
that's
good-
my, that's
good
my,
point.
that's my.
All right. What else? Anything else that you have that you need to
No,
save the best for last?
it's about where it's at.
We didn't talk about something.
We did,
Wait,
we
just a
didn't-
second, we're at,
Oh, sorry.
oh, well, let me just double
Yeah.
check what else we have here.
Darn it.
We had the powerhouse and the ARPA related. to
Oh,
that
thank
we
you.
discussed.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah,
The
was
ARPA
the
request
other-
on the powerhouse.
That's part of, yeah, that's part of my budget, what have you.
Yeah, well, I know we need to vote on that item though.
Thursday?
Do we have to, we can forward the ARPA request today, can we? Because we're. Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Okay,
we
great.
clearly want to vote on that Thursday.
All right.
Yes, thank you. Well, remember, we wanted to go through all the requests to see if we even wanted to go forward, and then if so,
Yeah.
the ARPA followed. So the question is on the, that's my point on the powerhouse, the non-ARPA. Are we comfortable with all of that? That's in yours.
That's in my budget.
Yeah,
right?
so that's,
Yeah,
it's,
that's
you know, that-
and it's only 250.
It's
That's not.
250. That's
it's
correct.
also,
So
we
that's-
did note that the potting shed, that has been approved. So this is just
Okay.
to be clear, because I had that same question.
all right.
It's the
Well, so-
extra 250.
There was just one other thing on the DPW. I think it was in your budget for capital, which was the tuck pointing at Waveney. Were you gonna try to see if that could bridge a couple
Oh,
of
bridge a
fiscal
couple.
years? Like, in other words, it might not all, I mean, there probably some that you should have done 2 years ago, but there
Yeah.
might be some that maybe could
We
be
can, we
pushed into
can, we
another
can go
year.
back to, we can go back to the design or the contractor that we've been talking about and see, like we talked about, yeah, the northern wall or the. you
Yeah,
know,
right.
What have you. The, we can ask whether, you know,
Because I think you said the totality felt like $500,000 to kind of get it all done, but the question is whether or not you needed to get it all done this year, because you might not do it all this year.
right, we can go back and talk to the contractor and see what the art of the possible is there. And then if there's any savings.
If there's,
If there's any,
right.
you know, or if this is, the problem is, you know, you scaffold it, right? So once you
Right.
start scaffolding it,
Yeah.
then it gets a little bit, you know, it's a lot of expense to
Right, so
scaffold
you
it.
might as well just, I get it.
So we can, I can bring that answer back on Thursday.
Yeah.
That was one thing I forgot to ask. So thank you.
Okay, so we've noticed the ARPA money, Tucker, for Thursday night.
Yeah.
That's noticed for the, okay,
Yeah, we
great.
talked
Thank you.
about that
All right, we'll
yesterday.
vote on that Thursday.
Parks and Rec's been totally covered, right?
I
mean,
covered it
yeah,
all.
I mean,
Parks
you've
is in my
included in,
department.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, so that's,
I think we got them all.
I think
We got 'em
we're
all.
home free here, yeah.
The,
I think,
So we will possibly avoid 1.5 million of capital or more. We'll see from the 17 where we were. I'm assuming
Oh.
I added back your 1.5 million. No, I didn't do anything with the 250 of ARPA. Actually, we may use that on some other items. I mean, just suggested a good one.
So we're back to
Gave back
16.
1.9, right?
Yeah,
I
that,
was
that has to.
about
it
15.8,
has to go processed.
but not including this 250.
It's like-
Right.
So we could be down to 15, 6, 7. Okay. On the operating though, $5 million is pretty meaningful. reduction from 8.8 to 3.8.
Yeah.
So
Good.
that's good work. Okay. Any other items? Oh, Michael, my gosh, you're up. Sorry, New Canaan Athletic Foundation, sorry.
You're bad luck. I'm telling you, you have bad luck.
You know what? You're right behind Ann and I saw you and I wrote it down and then
You want me to sit? You want me to go? No? Okay.
so we asked you to come back.
He can go. Yeah, every time he sits here, I have to sit here for about an hour and a half before he.
I didn't mind staying. I thought I was gonna be following everybody that reduced stuff
Yeah.
and then felt good.
Yeah, sorry.
No
I was
problem.
close there. I gave back 1.9 first.
So I'll try to be quick. Thanks for having me again. So over the past week and mostly including last night, had a meeting with the board of the Athletic Foundation, and we collectively determined the number that we're going to come forward with for an ask for the town to do what I would say a phased Dunning Stadium renovation project. So and I'll get into that in a minute, but I think also we talked last week about the baseball project. And I think collectively in talking to Tiger and my board and some others, where we are right this second from a design phase, I would feel uncomfortable making an ask for that right this very second. And just to give you a sense of where we are, they've done the survey work up at Capo. Once we get that back, they'll get into design, and in a place like where we are today with Dunning, where the cost of that is much more precise from the high level number that I'm working with today, which is, you could drive a bus through, and for your intents and purposes, it's like $3 to $4 million. I'll have a more precise number. So it's likely, and remember, my donors on that are restricted donors. So they're focused on doing that field and that project. So my focus on that would be to come back at a later date off cycle once we get those numbers together and tight. And as Amy counseled me last week, which is smart, like don't come with the high level number, come with the number that's going to be the real number. And so that's my intent for baseball. So for tonight's purposes, I'll park that. You'll see me in a month, 2, 3, whenever we get those numbers back from Richter and Segan and the architect. So tonight, my focus will be on the Dunning Stadium renovation. And if you recall, that had a number of different elements to it, including the new entranceway. I've actually broken it down into 6 here, where I would refer to the first is a ticket entranceway, including the donor wall. The second, I would include the press box. The third, I would include the the new concession stands. The fourth, I would consider to be the new toilet rooms on the home side. The fifth, I would consider to be the toilet rooms and storage facility on the visitor side. And then the sixth element is really just a renovation or retrofitting of the existing concession stand. What we collectively decided as a board last night, and in talking to Tiger over the past week, in terms of what's realistic to get done in phasing this, and what the Athletic Foundation really wants to see done priority wise, is the entranceway, so call it ticketing and donor wall, the press box, and 1 or potentially 2 of the other 2 phases, which would include the new concession stand and the new visitor side bathrooms and storage facility. And that's also in consult with Jay Egan, who is very much needs and wants the concession, or I'm sorry, the bathrooms on the visitor side, as well as the storage facilities on the visitor side, because that's used almost on a daily basis for practices and whatnot. All of this together, and a lot of this is what can we realistically get done this summer in a window where we're disrupting Dunning Stadium, or at least not the surface in the playing field, but the area surrounding. So the net of all that is, and combined with the place that the Athletic Foundation is comfortable with from our current donors, pledge donors, and current conversations for large donors, what we feel like we can come forward to and realistically ask for a matching donation from the town, that number is $2 million. So the Athletic Foundation is here tonight. to propose or ask for a $2 million contribution to the renovation of Dunning Stadium. And I'm comfortable saying that that would definitely be the entranceway ticket booth, the new press box. What form that press box takes, we're still discussing a little bit. And then one of the other phases that I talked about to get to a total cost of $4 million. And we have pretty hard numbers from architects and from Richter and Segan on all of that.
And that could get done this summer, all of that?
I think that the entranceway and ticket booth is actually not, it's
Right,
not
I
as
get that's
grand
the-
as you make
yeah.
it, as it sounds. The press box, yes, in that footprint. The other areas I think could get done. They may spill more into the fall, but it wouldn't, those are areas that, like, if we prioritize and phase this, those are areas that wouldn't disrupt even the inner bowl and viewing area of Dunning Stadium. So you could have events as you would normally have taking place in the fall without any disruption. The new entranceway and press
Yeah.
box, we feel comfortable that would get done.
Can I ask, and we're out like a little bit of time from high school. Have all the benches and all that stuff been fixed in Dunning? Because 5 years ago they were cracked. I mean, the stadium seating, is that all been repaired?
I think they get repaired on an as needed basis. There hasn't been an overhaul.
Okay.
of-
We had a consultant. That was in the Parks Department budget last year.
That's
Mhm.
right.
$25,000 item. We had a bleacher consultant come in
Great.
and look at all of our bleachers. Once, John and I had someone come in and take a look, and the majority of them have been fixed, and all the safety concerns that we had have been taken care of.
Okay.
So they came in, they did an analysis of all of our bleachers, said, these are the things that you need.
So
to
the
do on
stadium
safety."
bleachers fixed, right?
Yeah, there's still some
and-
that,
yeah.
that need a
Okay.
little bit of work, but all the safety features have been repaired.
Okay.
And then he has money. We have money in our budget every year for Dunning Stadium improvements. It's a small item. It's not a very large item. I think it's $10,000.
Right.
It's
Probably should be
strictly
bigger.
for Dunning for that purpose.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we have nothing in our budget, right? For any of
Uh,
this we're talking about?
I'm sorry,
We have
what?
nothing in the budget.
Well, we have
for-
900
We've not
because
done
we
it
have,
over
we have
3 years.
we have 300 for
Is
this
that
year and
part of
two,
it?
so we have 900 set aside, right?
So
Go ahead.
you don't have 900 set aside. 3 years ago, we started putting in a $300,000 cadence. So
Do we have 6 and then we're gonna fund 3?
we have 3 currently because nothing like 50 grand of this fiscal year has been touched. Roughly 300 has been spent for the light project and for this
Got it.
design phase.
Okay.
So that again, I'm coming forward with as this was originally contemplated, the lights were included in the Dunning renovation, the press box, the lights and the new entranceway. So, and that 300 a year was set forth 2
years.
2 years ago. We were in the 5-year plan at 300 a year. And
And we've used some.
we've
We
used
used
roughly
to-
300 of it.
Okay.
300,
And-
So
yeah.
we have last year's 300 and then we were gonna fund this year's 300. So we kind of have 6 right now. If
It's
this-
already
So
been.
a little
Yes.
under the, we have about 250 left of.
But
this
the
year.
way that I had thought about that and in my discussions with others was those were good placeholders.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, it doesn't matter. We don't operate in like yearly cadence. It's great that the partnership
we
with the
get it.
town has had,
We get.
but I knew I was coming forward with, we've got a big project this year. So like, in 2024, 25, 26, if we fund these 2 big things, it's unlikely that I would be using those 300s, unless I have another big project
Mhm.
on the horizon.
2 quick questions. We actually budgeted 450 last year for Dunning lights. That was what was
That's
approved.
But that was
Okay.
the lights.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
Those were done,
But the overall
project-
cost
the
was
overall cost
600
some
and
change,
we,
that
the
came
Athletic
from-
Foundation
that came
chipped
from
in
the
on
Athletic
that.
Foundation.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jenny.
No, do you have restricted donations already in place for this project, assuming the town complies and moves forward?
So I have restricted, what I would say is restricted, way I refer to it is stuff that would be restricted for baseball. And those today are pledges. Those are hard
Only
pledges
for the
that,
baseball.
well, so they're hard pledges for, that would be restricted to baseball that I don't believe I'll be able to convert. Everybody knows that the money has to be in the bank before we sign a contract. Those pledges wouldn't, that's not money in the bank today. Those pledges will convert when those restricted baseball donors and the Athletic Foundation together say, we're in partnership with the town, we're building this, come September. And I have full confidence that those will convert. I mean, those are real numbers.
So what do you think you need to raise to be able to?
So for this $2 million, for Dunning renovation, for this $2 million ask for the town, I'm on track to raise $2 million. And it could be more than that. I'm in conversations with a couple of large donations that potentially could be a naming right. I discussed briefly last week about somebody looking to potentially raise or name the press box.
Yeah, you did.
So
mention that. Yeah.
I'm comfortable that we're going to get to 2 million when we need to have 2 million hard dollars. And it could be potentially more than that with some of the asks that we have out.
Okay.
But from my mind, again, take a step back, the Marinelli campaign, what this started as was we have a stated goal of $5 million to fund our master plan. So this is a phase of the master plan. All of this stuff are phases of the master plan. We get donations all the time. Now that we have real projects on the horizon, that tends to catalyze people. It tends to turn pledges into real dollars. It turns people that are, oh, I know what you guys do. I know what you guys do. Oh, this is what you're doing this year. Hold on a second. Let me contribute. And I had one of those just this morning.
Oh.
Which is nice.
Just break this down for me a little bit. So this is a multi-phase master plan. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
The whole thing.
The whole
thing.
Yes.
This is phase one. And
Dunning Stadium. Yeah.
You want to call this phase
I would call it phase one.
And this is $4 million total,
Yes.
50-50. You're looking
Yes.
for 2 from the town, 2
Correct.
private.
Yes.
If you raise 3 private, is it 1 from the town?
If I,
I was thinking the same thing. Aren't we?
The right answer is yes.
no, I mean, I appreciate that.
Oh, but
I appreciate that's the answer you want to hear. The right answer from my perspective is all the dollars that we raise when they go to real projects, donors feel very comfortable when they feel like it's a 50-cent dollar.
Well, you also don't need 2 million or $4 million for phase one, 2 million from the donors. You need 10 million with some other larger number for the master plan. So you could argue the 3 million could go towards the master plan. Some number could go to the phase one, right?
Yeah.
I could argue that this is all of this is a moving target because we're constantly value engineering stuff. What I could also do, and I would tell you, $1.5 million of this is bathrooms. I have a really hard time raising money for bathrooms sometimes.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So it's, there's some stuff in here that I don't talk about in the multi-phase that are traffic circles. And I definitely don't raise money for those, right? So like, we collectively are very in tune on what all of this will ultimately cost. The portion of private and public dollars, look, I'll give you the reality of my board meeting last night was I even got a little pushback from my board that the real need from our constituents is more on playing surfaces. And so this is going to make a beautiful stadium even more beautified. And we were stated as a master plan from the very beginning, but I mean, so one of my board members said that there's a lot of money behind this, but it's like, we got to get through this part and build this. And then
I got
So-
it. I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just simply trying to parse it apart. You actually answered some of my question, which is of this 4 million, how much of this is what I would say really a town asset, like the bathrooms, like, there's some related things like that I shouldn't say town asset, but it's utilitarian. I mean, it's fundamental to the investment. So if you're looking for 2 million, and is that all this literally over 120 days, or money would be spent inside of 6 months?
It'll be spent by, November.
Latest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, we're bonding for ambulances we're not gonna get for a year or two.
Isn't that
We're,
ridiculous?
we're not bonding for them, but where my point is, it's in our capital here, $1 million fire truck that we're gonna see for 2 years. This is different. This is literally.
No, this
Yeah,
is a
it-
shovel in the ground the
That's
day
right.
after graduation.
That's right. Yeah.
But just so that I can understand, so if I wrote this down correctly, I heard you describe, so there's 6 different phases or steps to Dunning. So you have an
That's
entrance.
the way that we've
You conceive of it as those
Correct.
being subparts or steps. So you got the entrance, the press box, concession, toilet home, toilet visitor, and then general retrofitting.
Right, because really it's 6 separate buildings. That's the way the architects broke it
I
down.
get it. But the 4 million doesn't get us all 6 steps.
No.
It gets us the main 3 and then maybe one of the remaining 3.
No, get your
Gets
3
you
out
the
of
main-
6.
It gets you 2, it gets you 3 probably. We
gets me
just don't know
entrance,
which
press
the third
box.
one's gonna be.
And
Exactly.
visitors. to-
Entrance, press box, and one of the other 2.
What,
We just don't know which one that's gonna be yet.
and do you have, but, okay. But do you have hard numbers that tells us what all 6 is so that the total of Dunning is going to be, and what is that number?
That's a number that is still currently being value engineered.
Yeah,
I see.
Mike
I don't
Mike
have enough-
Sagan's
I
work.
don't have enough information. I feel like I have these general numbers. you know?
No, there's no, okay, so Amy, there's no general numbers about what I'm asking for tonight. For 3 buildings,
Okay.
it's going to be $4 million.
And-
And those 3 buildings, we've prioritized in consult with Tiger and Jay. That those 3 structures will be the new entranceway, ticket booth and donor wall. The press box,
Got it.
the only place where they cost the same, so it doesn't matter to my ask. The only place where we're not 100% confirmed is it going to be the bathrooms and the visitor storage? Or is it going to be the new concession booth on behind the,
And all 4 of those, whichever 3 you choose, but all 4 of those have been value engineered.
Yes.
The
Yes.
remaining ones that aren't in the scope of what you're asking for tonight have not been value engineered.
They've been value engineered, but there's more work that they can do, and this is a
Right.
big
I see.
bathroom
So
issue. This
Just
is,
numbers that aren't ready for
This-
prime.
We've asked
It's
them to
not-
look- Yeah, we've asked them to look at everything and they value engineered everything down. One of the issues that we have is that we have a stadium that holds 4,000 people.
Yep.
It needs X amount of bathrooms, okay, to house that, but that's for 1 game a year.
Right.
So that's a huge expense at that point in time. So then it comes down to, okay, do you size it for your average football game of 1,400, right, for 7 games and then the Turkey Bowl? Or do you average it for your soccer and lacrosse at 200? You follow me, right?
Yeah.
So that's our problem. We have to, and then the state building inspector gets involved because it's a code issue, right? It's a code because you have to make it, it's an area of assembly, sorry. The
It's outsourced. Doesn't need HVAC.
outside area of assembly, it's a little.
Was, that's a 4-letter word.
So, exactly. So, but you have to then, so you have to go to the state building inspector and say, okay, we are amply. You've been there, right? We don't have enough. When it was originally built, it wasn't sized correctly at the
Right.
time when it was.
So, and I appreciate that. So if that issue is we don't want bathrooms for the once a year event, how can one of the bathrooms be on the list?
We're trying to get down to the level of what is acceptable for going forward with the donors saying, well, I paid for, and I still don't have a place to go, so to speak, right? Or, and then you don't want to oversize it because like you said, why are we gonna average for 4,000 or 1,400?
Got to
We're trying
repair
get
them.
down
You
to-
got to clean them.
Surely you're not gonna get approval to do the 200 attendee soccer thing. I mean, that's
Well,
just a pipe dream. If
the
that's
code
what
is-
you're
the
holding
code
on
is-
for.
The
that's
code
a
is,
pipe dream.
the code is this, but the state building inspector feels do better than you have. Okay, this really the mantra is to expand on what you had. So do better than what you've got. And then you work towards that. The only caveat is that the first ones have to be ADA compliant, which that's a federal law.
Yeah.
That's easy, right? So yeah, but because it's not you.
So
Someone.
how many do you have now?
Right now, we have 5 of each.
We have
3.
we
male
have
and 3
3
female.
and 1 family.
And you've got to go to 250. Now you gotta
No,
go
I'm
to.
sorry.
No,
No,
they
not
did
250. No,
lavatory.
those are, yeah, the water
Those are
closets. We have
actual
3 and
water
3 of the
3 and
water
3.
closets right now in the existing stadium. If we had to get to where they want us to be, it's a substantially higher number. So we're trying to then dial that number into what's going to satisfy the state building official, satisfy our
Yeah.
chief building official, and then satisfy the donors. Whereby they actually, you don't have
so we're trying to right size that. And as we get smaller and smaller, that number comes down and down, right? Almost to the point where we can remove a building. But we're not there yet. That's the problem that we have, is
Well,
trying to figure out
and-
exactly where.
Would it be helpful to your efforts, just throw this out, that we parse this out so that all the utilitarian items are the town's dime? And then you can go back and say, well, your other issues and efforts here.
The fun stuff.
The fun stuff is yours, and I'm sure Mike can give you that breakdown. Would that be a better way to handle this? Because we would do that anyway. That is the town's responsibility. It's a capital item for toilets and.
Well,
The toilets and retrofit,
Yeah,
you
and
guys do the
retrofitting,
press box and
exactly.
the
That's-
honor wall and
That's
the
ours anyway,
concessions.
so.
Everybody wants to do that.
so we have thought about that. What's the town's responsibility? What's our responsibility? Or
It's
what's the need?
legitimate,
What's the want? I would tell you, the sixth phase, which we didn't talk about, was, I do feel like is the town's responsibility, and it's all the site work that goes around there, and it's traffic circles and parking lots and crosswalks and things that are actually school safety issues. And
Oh, yeah.
that, all of this work has been done. That's a big slug of money, and we are definitely not in the position to even talk about that or ask for that tonight. The good part is the work to prepare for that has been done and paid for already. And I totally agree conceptually with what you're saying, Judy.
That would be ours.
Some of the problem is some of these buildings have both. The press box right now, as it's contemplated, has 2 water closets in it. We could remove those water closets if we build the bathroom thing right behind it, because it's the right.
Right. We haven't just.
I mean,
Okay.
I would tell you, like, we've spent a crazy amount of time in this, and the original. So Amy, the level of details, the architects came back with 108-page cost estimate for these projects. So I know down to a knob what things are estimated to cost, okay? But this first page is the summary of the 6 phases that I'm talking about. This second page is just on bathrooms. And so that's been a lot of our delay over the last week and a half. What I'm asking for tonight, the $2 million, doesn't really get impacted by the bathrooms. The only ones that would potentially is if we decide to do the visitor, the storage area and the visitor bathrooms, that's got bathrooms associated with it. But right now, the press box doesn't, we might be able to eliminate the 2 water closets that are in the press box, and the gate, the ticket booth and the gateway. There's nothing there. That's easy. That's done. So that's why I felt like, given where we are in our donations and where I have good visibility to $2 million, the projects that I think we know we can get done in this window, the projects that are important to our donors and they want to see done, because we've talked about this entranceway, donor wall and press box for a long time. $2 million from us and from the town is certainly going to get that done. And, to the extent that we have more donations that come in, for the next phase or through the $2 million, and we have a large master plan that we're trying to execute on. And we can
So,
discuss that, but
My
That
sense is
doesn't
that,
include.
my sense is that to come to the town and ask for $700,000 2 days before we're going to be voting on the 23-24 budget is a big surprise. And there's a process that we usually go through for big capital items like this, especially a big ticket item like 700,000. So
2
right
million.
now in the 5-year plan, there's $300,000 a year. I would suggest we table this till next year, put it in the 24-25 budget. And then if you have a detailed analysis of all of the capital items for all phases, include that in the 5-year plan. I think that's more aligned with the way we do the capital projects around here.
Yeah, and you just mentioned something earlier that your donors like to see 50-cent dollars. So we need to know what our 50 cents is going to be on a total project. It's 2 million today, but this is it's a master plan with a lot of other phases that we don't know about necessarily. And we don't know what the price tag is on that, but if it's all 50-cent dollars, it could be 2 million and then 2 million, and then, we're in for a lot of millions after
Well,
a while.
that may be a no. you know, at some point that's not unlimited. Forgetting this, and I don't know, what's 700,000? Talking about 2 million.
I thought it was 2 million, but he was gonna raise 1 million from his donors and we were gonna.
No,
do-
no,
No,
that's
that's
two.
Four. It's four.
It's 2 does.
Our
Yeah.
page is fine.
So,
I just think it would be helpful if we're going to end up with all the bathrooms and this huge expense. What part of the 4 million are we paying for? If you're paying 2 and we're paying 2 and we're going to be paying for all of this, what exactly is the town's stake in this, if you will?
It's 2 and 2.
What, I get the money, but what are we actually paying?
2 and 2 for a press box, a new entranceway, and either we have to decide this with Jay Egan and others. The other priority would be either the visitor restrooms and storage facility
Mhm.
or the new concession stand on the side, on the backside of the press box, also servicing water tower 1, 2, 3.
That's all in the 4?
Yes, well, no, one of those two. Those two
One of those
buildings
2
roughly
plus
cost
the
the
other
same.
is in the 4.
Everybody's got different
Right.
priorities on those two
Okay,
buildings.
I get it. I think I'm getting it now.
And,
What do you-
I
and,
mean, I think the
did you
town,
but let me just answer one of the questions from over here. None of this has to get done. Like, we don't have to do anything. Dunning Stadium can sit and be exactly as it is right now. The traffic can be exactly as it flows right now, which is dangerous if you talk to some people at the school. The press box can be the trailer press box that it is today. The bathrooms can be the current lavatories that they are today. None of this has to get done.
That's fair.
But, so nobody's asking to underwrite a large master plan of everything that Richter and Segan and TLB architects came back with. I am saying that we have donors, generous donors in this town that have come forward to fund some of this. And they're enthusiastic to do that, knowing that they're in a good public-private partnership with the town. If there's pushback on that, there's going to be pushback on that. But I think that there'll be consequences to that when it comes to how enthusiastic people are about the Athletic Foundation. And I think that, you know, having done this now for close to 7 years, having done 2 major projects, quite frankly, the first one was bootstrapped, or the first one we were pushed into, the second one was bootstrapped. The level of planning and communication that's gone on for this one, I think has been above and beyond. And so, yes, while I started with the first selectman and then came to you guys after having gone to Parks and Rec and to you guys last Tuesday, we've tried to be as open and transparent and communicative as we possibly can be, going all the way back to even November when we had our fundraiser and announced the additions to our master plans and what we were doing with the town and our public-private partnership. So
Yeah, but even to that point, sorry, Mike, with the past 2 years, we've said we're coming back.
Yeah,
Then this year, with actually last year, I remember saying that we're coming this year, this summer, with basically a $3 to $5 million project. We're at a $3 to $5 million project. So last year we said it, we said, okay, we need the 300 because we needed a planning money. And then we're coming back because we weren't able to make the time frame last year, the June build. Now we're on schedule to make the June build for this year. That was one problem that we had. We weren't going to make that June build because we all have a limited time. We have right after graduation to first day of school, in essence, first football game, right? So we had to make that work. So last year, I remember saying that we're coming back. We're, you know, in
And-
essence, we're here.
And in fact, our direction to the Richter and Segan guys, starting in June of last year, May, June of last year, I said, okay, work backwards from the day after graduation and get me design, get me, you know, plans, get me real cost estimates, everything so that we can put a shovel in the ground the day after graduation 2023. And I always knew that that was going to be into the 23-24 budget cycle. But that's the timeline that we've been talking about, working on, been transparent with everybody in town that we've been working towards, and there's been
Yeah,
a lot of work done.
I think all that's fair, and I think you're right. You did say you're going to come back, but in point of fact, I don't think it's accurate to describe this as a $3 to $5 million project. This is, you're asking for 4 million for part of a project, the larger number of which isn't ready for prime time. So
These
again,
so maybe,
I mean, maybe
I don't know how else to say this. This is the project that
Yeah.
is going to get done this summer. Everything on this list
Yeah.
is a wish list. So you
Understood.
can basically say no to everything else.
no, I get
right?
it, but I
Yeah.
guess part of me because what you said is, okay, so we have Dunning and there's 6 pieces and here's these. And so what I'm wondering is, for lack of a better description, how half pregnant are we? In other words, if I do these 4, is it silly or imprudent
No, I
not to
think
do the
that's-
others? And if so,
question.
then what
I
is
think
that
it's a
other
good
number
question, and
on
I think
time?
it's a good way to put it. Unlike other projects that I've seen get done where you're literally toothpaste is out of the tube and you got to finish this
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
These are not those projects because every one of them are standalone buildings or an existing traffic flow today. It doesn't have to get done. You haven't busted
Right.
ground on something and say, now you have to finish it.
Right.
You know, we
So-
have an existing concession stand in Dunning Stadium today. It works.
Hey,
It
Mike, could
operates.
you do 2 projects versus
Yeah.
3?
Yeah.
I mean, and look at, I am not, I know you guys have done a ton of work and from where you're sitting, there's incredible information flow. From where I'm sitting, I didn't see a big line item, a capital line item for New Canaan Athletic Foundation for this year when we started getting the budget stuff. I'm not saying you guys didn't do it, but for me, it's a little bit more of a surprise. Like had I seen a placeholder, like, 2 months ago, then you incorporate it with everything. So I'm not questioning you did that, but just we got to balance everyone's ass, right? And you're right, none of this has to be done. And in many ways, it's a bonus to the town to do it. But so you said there's 4 projects, 3 or 4 could get done. Could you prioritize 2? And the 2 wouldn't need $2 million. It would need something smaller from us. I'm just looking for something that keeps the momentum, keeps it going, but also we got to figure out how to pay for this.
Well, so some of that he's listing in there also, as we determine, what the right size of the number of facilities are, right? Then that number comes down dramatically, right? So if you get rid of a building, you drop $1.5 million, $2 million off of a number right away, so-
Well,
When could that building come next year? Could
I'm
you do 2 and then next year do something? Just
Well, the one of the problems that you have with that is that, again, if we get into the building code, we have to make an improvement on the number of fixtures. That has to happen.
got it.
And we have to have them be ADA compliant.
Yep.
That has to happen, right? So the donor wall doesn't get us, the entrance in the donor wall doesn't get us there, and the press box necessarily doesn't get us there. So now we're into a home facility concession stand with bathrooms or a visitors area with bathrooms. And to be honest with you, it's very difficult to determine between those two because they both have huge merit as far as the visitors area with a storage area with visitors bathrooms.
Used all the
That's
time.
used every day by the kids
Right.
going back and forth, right? Because that's where the portalets are,
Yeah.
right? So that's used every day by the kids. So Jay's
That's a
like,
good one. Yeah.
I want that. The larger span, if you look at the master plan from the athletic foundation to utilize all the fields for, to make it a beautiful campus feel, is to have a concession stand that's utilized from both sides. So now you're at the point of splitting the baby, right? Do you do this item or this item? Because it originally started as a press box, an entrance and press box project. These others came on, so you want to do those main focuses and then see where you're going to be. But we have to do something with a bathroom at some point there to satisfy the building official. And then we determine what these 2 are. So in the end, you could really get away with, sorry, Mike, I don't, if I speak, I tell me no, but you get the 2 plus the other 2, and you might be 3 now, 1 later. And that might be it for Dunning Stadium, except for the exterior work that ties it in with the campus.
So
that fair?
you've probably thought of this. I know you've done more thinking about this than you probably care to. But back to some of the feedback that you're getting. First of all, I don't think you should walk away from here saying, we're going to sign up for 50 cents on every dollar you want to spend. That's kind of we can't do that, right? I mean, if you want to raise 10 million, we're not going to put up 10 million just because, right? I mean, maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not. So let's, we love the partnership and we'll all in, but we have to talk about what the limit is. And there's an X, right? There's definitely a limit on that. So anyway, we're not near the limit. That's not what we're talking about tonight, but I just want to make sure that was clear. The press box in the entrance, what is that? How much is that? Forget the bathrooms. And I'll tell you why. Is there a temporary, you've thought about this, is there a temporary bathroom solution like there is for every other event that has a surge in capacity for one day that could take us through a year? So in other words, could you do something with the entrance and a press box this year and do all the bathrooms next year, or vice versa, or some combo? In other words, is there $1 million answer for this year and $1 million answer for next year? I'm sensitive to the process. I will say this, we can move fast if we want to. Let's not hold, I mean, if we want to. If we don't want to, we don't have to, but we can if we want to. So let's not fool around here. If we want to move $1 million, we can move $1 million. And if donors and town residents are going to step up and put up that kind of money, I think it's incumbent upon us to work a little harder to figure it out. So I don't have a problem with that. Again, we can vote no. We can also, defer it, but I wouldn't just say because someone didn't show up last Tuesday or 2 months ago that they can't have this. Go ahead. Is there an answer to my other question?
Question was
Yeah.
specifically entranceway.
Two
and press
questions.
box.
One, yeah, is there a way to break this into, call it $1 million this year, $1 million next year? And is there an answer around getting a bathroom solution that's for this year that provides a temporary, I'll call it temporary, like happens all the time.
I have to go back and ask our building official that question. Mike was just asking, can we do the press box without touching the bathrooms? And I don't know, even with the temporary fix, right? Because we have a temporary fix now. And their feeling is the moment you start spending money on it, your first dollar should be towards compliance issues. We wouldn't be spending that money towards compliance issues. We're not given since we're a municipality, we're not given a pass on that, right?
That's fair.
Normally on a renovation, 20% has to go to compliance issues. We are first dollar goes to compliance issues and then you work towards everything else. So it's hard being a municipality. I'd have to ask that question. I personally think you go the other route where you say, I don't know where the project is not necessarily going to get much bigger than where we're at right now. There might be one other phase that would come in, but
No, I'm just talking about the 4 million.
I'm trying to understand,
But
trying to
you say
get to
that
that point.
you often describe the press box as also lavatories and concession stands. So it sounds like it's one big building,
No, it's
it has
not.
multiple uses.
It's two different buildings. The press
One on
box
top
sits
of the
in front,
other?
The concession stand is back
Sits in the
because the
back.
concession stand is actually on the opposite side of the patio.
If you were,
know.
yeah.
Oh, yes, I
Because
remember that.
then
Yes,
you
yes,
can-
yes,
then you
yes,
can
yes.
join
yes.
it from the other side.
Right.
The other problem that we
Yeah, I
have is that
remember
the
that.
moment I start to,
Picture.
the moment I start to break it up, the ground, I want to put everything in it in order to then tie in everything together, right? So if I'm gonna have, electrical
right.
running.
Yeah,
You do it
kinda
right.
do it.
You got to do it right. That's the right
I
thing.
want
to
to
do.
do it twice.
That's
That's
right.
the other, that's why when you ask that question, I go, oh.
Yep.
Now I gotta think about what my disturbance is for phase
Well,
two.
So pretty much,
Well, maybe press box and then the building across from the concessions. How does that work?
well, what I think what he's saying is as soon as he puts a shovel in the ground, he's committed to do all the bathrooms to be in compliance.
No, I'm
All
not
of them.
committed to do
Not
all
all
the
of them.
bathrooms, no, but I have to make it better. So I have to get compliant bathrooms, meaning ADA.
Right, but
compliant
the
bathrooms.
better is still the number that you're
That's
negotiating
the
or
number we're
sorting.
negotiating where we can come down from, but so I have to, in essence, I've got to make it better. So the state building official is satisfied with that we're making it better. And then say, okay, we can go forward with press box concession stand.
Do we have what you guys are looking at?
What?
Do I have this?
Yeah, we have that
It's
from last week.
No, I just,
No,
got-
no,
That's
no.
brand new.
Not the numbers.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, the numbers
no,
were-
no, I just,
This is the value engineering that we just received from
Yeah.
from the architect.
Yeah, no.
And it has a breakdown of where they
that we
are,
asked them to break it down
Right.
like this.
the series through, and then what the iterations would be for us. And how we would then break it up from there. So that's how we came up. And then when Mike's met with his board last night, they voted on the areas that they wanted to see,
Yeah, we should have that.
Well, understand where we are, right? Was never in the budget. No play, not even a placeholder, 0. So again, 2 million, regardless of timing, that's obviously a lot for us to understand. And if you really could do $1 million, it's easy, 1.5 million. I mean, but when you're getting to be, it's a really big number out of without,
Well, I guess the second question would be, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, would be if you went that route, to Judy's point, if the town put in the.
Yeah.
Said, well.
Utilitarian
the-
stuff.
Right, the utilitarian stuff, if the town then said, okay, second phase,
Yeah,
they would do
it's-
that. With
was
that,
thinking,
you know,
yeah.
and then we could split the town's project up
Mhm.
into 2 years of $1 million apiece. Think that can work.
Maybe 250 ARPA.
well,
Yeah,
now,
maybe
now
that
you,
is-
you just answered the question. That's what I was saying. If you can do $1 million this year and $1 million next
That's
year.
what I'm trying to figure out, because it
Yeah.
might be where, you could get the, you could get the, I have to look again, but the
Didn't you
press
s-
box,
didn't
you
you
get
say
the
the
press box
press-
is in the entryway, right? And concession, and then the visitors storage area and bathrooms. That's really utilitarian in the end, right? It's a storage facility for all the, and then bathrooms for the kids. In essence, I mean, it's on the visitor side, but it's really for the kids. That student bathroom area is one, it's just one, right? So that's $1 million. And that one's away, okay, meaning it's out. You know, I don't know. I don't want to talk.
Can
for this,
you
but-
just?
No, I think the real priority from ours, and we prioritize these, is press box, donor entry wall, like
Yep.
the entry and the donor wall.
Yep.
Those are kind of
Yep.
what we
And what's that?
definitely.
What's the
need to
total
see
for that?
done. Little over $2 million,
That's 2 million?
depending upon how we want to go exactly with the press box. That's where there's some variability that we can discuss. There's bathrooms in the press box today. I don't know if we have to have them.
But if
Like,
you did 2 million for that, that's private. We do it $1 million this year and $1 million next year. A
If you
million helps you with your compliance, and then $1 million next year completes that piece of it. Does that work?
Yeah.
It'd be close. Be close.
I mean, I can get my head wrapped around that.
Yeah. Can you
But that's
just,
their money.
yeah, but can you just define when you said dangerous?
No,
Is-
answer my question. Could that work?
But to your point,
I-
dangerous, it should be the first million. What is that?
That's that's a work around the site itself. So what you have now is where the student drop-off area is in the front, and how the parking lots merge together as far as the original design, and how it's actually working in the field is different, right? And it's a little bit, it needs some enhancements. It needs.
Is
some-
that included
That's
in the
not,
first?
that, because that's on the town side. So, but we just got the
Yeah.
design and we got the number, and I'm not bringing that money, that forward and dumping that out there at present. That's got to have a little bit more of a look, but that's trying to see where you have 3 parking lots going, or 4 parking lots going into its, or 3 parking lots and an access road going into itself.
Yeah, but the liability becomes a major issue for the town.
We've tried our best
So,
to
yeah.
improve the pedestrian enhancements
If
through that
it's-
area,
I don't
but
know,
that's an
it's-
area that would need to be worked.
Yeah, but
I'm
then
just-
you see the issue there is if we say that could be another million, or maybe not, maybe 500,000 or so for all of this road
Extra.
work.
That's
More than a million?
Is it more than a million? See,
Okay,
that's,
so.
That's a-
back
okay,
to the
okay, so we're not in
utilitarian.
for 2, we're in for
If
like
you're in
3
for
and a
that,
half.
if you want to do it, I don't think there's still something we could choose to do.
That's something.
And we could choose to do it 2 years from now.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah. we
So
could-
I don't-
we
Yeah,
could
but
look
if it's
at
a
that,
safety
and that-
issue and if.
then it's,
Safety
also
issue.
be
then it's a
phased in.
wanna do
liability.
it.
It's already on record, public hearing.
My question is this, if we could pencil in 2 million, $1 million this year and $1 million next year. Does that get you going
Yeah.
to do what you need to do for the donor wall, press box, and that first $1 million against the compliance? That's a lot easier for us, I think, to process, because you're gonna learn more doing this thing, and you're gonna be back here a year from now, and we'll have a whole nother list of some other things to do, which is completely fine. But let's take it a step at a time. I think that, if you had $1 million now and $1 million later.
and when you say 1 million, is it like, how does that get directed? Does that have to be, is that just 1 million to the Athletic Foundation project? Like,
Well, good question. I think
Because these are.
Judy was trying to propose an answer, which was to put it against those, utilitarian, those kinds of things. whether it's,
RCA, so that we knew.
ADA compliant, all that kind of stuff that you have to do.
You won't get the press box now.
No. The, we'd have 3 this year, right? What do you get done for 3?
You're not, no. you're not gonna be-
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Or safety.
And then all
Alright.
that's roadways, roadways,
Things are the
couple
same.
of-
I know.
It's really the second
Yeah,
year.
but you
you
can
want
stay away
to-
from them.
two
Those are
plots.
But I have details. I can't even think
You're
about
saying
that
you
right
have
now.
to
You've
do
got
it.
nothing in front of you to even look at.
That's why
You
it's
know,
saying.
responsible.
Do all that.
Yeah, and you don't know what the, this is multi-phase.
This is hard.
But you have some people stepping up to write some big checks.
Oh, yeah,
Something
yeah.
done. I don't want to shut that down.
He's trying to strike that
Give
balance.
away, Chase away 2 million.
No. We want to figure out a way to make that work.
That's one of
It's
us.
two buildings, though.
Yeah, I mean, plus, you know, we've got,
I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know that. It's any of it's changed.
So,
traffic patterns.
We were, last time we come.
No, I think they're saying that there's existing.
Baseball stadium was gonna be the go-to
that
project.
Need remediation.
That got tabled, right?
That's
Because
what
it's
they were
private money and not detailed it up.
I'm,
And
I'm
s-
sorry,
it was
say
restricted.
that again?
So when we talked was it last week, and I could have got this wrong, it was like the project that probably was gonna happen. Did I hear that wrong? Was it baseball?
Well, they were
stadium?
both. It was both.
Was it-
And it was
okay.
It was always
In fact,
both.
I led with, we spent most of the time on Dunning and then the
Okay.
last piece was on the.
It was
baseball.
definitely
Okay.
both.
Right.
And I always thought Dunning was a little bit more urgent or until, the baseball popped up, but
It was not, it's two buildings.
I'm assuming you've talked to Jim Dunning and he's fully behind all this, or has there been any
James is
real
on the board.
discussion or?
James is on the board of the Athletic Foundation.
Well, then he knows all of this, right? Okay, that's important, I think, yeah.
well, two thoughts for you.
Good.
One, we could just mentally think about, we could pencil in 1 million right now and come back. I hate to do this to you with Tiger on Thursday. And let's just see what can we do for the 1.5 million. I don't want you to have to design it and here it makes that, take a couple of days to figure that out. I think that's okay.
I got thought on that, Todd.
Okay.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. There's about 253 in the account right now. Is that right?
250.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 250. I'm just throwing this out there.
Yep.
250.
Getting creative. I feel that I see the smoke, the wheels are spinning. I like it.
250, doing handicap bathrooms and bathrooms definitely complies with ARPA.
Yeah.
We have 250 in ARPA that we're not going to dedicate at this point, where we're
To the
figuring out how to do the commands.
True.
Okay, so that's got you do, so that gets you 500,000, right?
You got 250 in the bank plus 250
If
from
if we get
ARPA.
the ARPA dedicated to it,
That gets you
okay?
1.5 million.
Then if we can get comfortable
That's right.
with 1 million, then we're not quite 1-to-1, but we're closer.
So that the total would be 1.5 million,
Half,
including
right?
ARPA.
Including ARPA.
Okay.
Right?
This year.
Can we put a pin in that? And then
This
I'll come
year-
Back Thursday.
This year, recognizing you're really still asking for another 500,000 to 1 million for next year. I'm not letting that,
No, I
let's not let that off the table. Let's just, actually, we should put that in to make
As
sure
a
we
whole.
memorialize that so we don't forget about that a
Whole.
year from now.
Yeah.
I
but
mean, the selectmen have to move the ARPA.
course.
through the whole
But
process, but-
if that's a pretty good play, if you're okay with that, we can make that the answer, by the way, if you want to just do that, if you want to come back Thursday.
I want to make sure that I got to really look at this and not.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, so
That's what
I'll
I'm-
come back Thursday.
I think
and,
that's right. Yep.
Just to be sure that we have proper coverage.
Look, we want to move fast. We want to come up with a creative way to move, and that's a lot of money to move really fast. So
Yeah.
I'd love to do it if we can do it. So if that's an idea, why don't you work with that and see
So
what
do we
happens?
just close out the rest of the ARPA then and just to kind of make it cleaner that way?
How much?
No, well, we still have,
It's another 40,000
we
or
have 47,000.
47,000.
we could. We can't really do that yet because that has to come through the committee to come to us.
Yeah,
We can't
that's
do
like
anything with the remaining balance. As small as it is, that's not the process. So don't worry about that. But that's a suggestion.
Yeah, I don't know if we could do I think the 250 really should go through the selectmen as well.
Oh,
Right,
it has to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
but that could be like, if the selectmen and women thought it was reasonable.
So that's replacing the 300 that's currently there with 1 million and 1 million.
No.
With
So, no,
75
so
and 1
the
million.
250's hanging there right now, right? There's 250 there.
This year.
We had planned on doing 3 this year.
Yes.
Okay, so this would be us adding another 7 to the 3 we had planned, and if the selectmen would approve the 250,
That's right.
then we're only going up, not a
No,
million.
No, we
No,
said we,
it's-
1 million plus the 3 plus the 2 gave them 1.5 million.
Right, but we were gonna do 3, 100,000.
Anyway.
Right, so I'm just saying, our delta
Incremental.
is going not up 1 million, it's going up 700,000.
She's.
Well, plus 2. Yes, that's right. It goes up 1 million. It goes to 1.2 million on plus the 300.
So it goes to 1 million.
Okay.
for this coming year.
Is,
Which
No,
250
I was
is
just
correct.
saying we're only.
Of which.
Right, he's not talking about how it changes.
Yeah.
He's saying,
Yeah.
Yeah,
what
yeah.
do I enter
Yes.
on the piece of paper?
Jo-
Yes.
Josh is right. That's right. You're right.
That's right.
Of which
Million
250s are.
Right.
is the town,
Oh, on top of that,
We're going to
That's on top
cycle
of
ARPA through the appropriate.
0.3 is the 250 unspent.
No.
No.
yeah, see, that's.
We had already had a plug number of 3.
You know, he has money left over from last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, let's walk Josh through it so we all have the same notes
Yeah.
here. So it's the 1.3, go ahead, you
No,
go.
no, that's fine.
Okay, you have two, they have 250. It's there. It's sitting in
It's
the bank.
already there.
We were going to do 300,
Right. 300 is in the budget right now.
right,
That's
which
right.
made you,
No, no, no.
For
Unspent
23,
from this-
24.
Yeah, unspent from this year.
Is
250.
Yeah, is already,
That's-
yeah,
That's your
unspent,
starting.
yeah,
Yes.
right.
allocated.
If
Yeah.
we were gonna do
how
300,
fun is this?
okay? I will start with 250.
250 is in the
Okay,
bank.
250. If the ARPA money can be transferred over, that would give us a 500,000. Okay, we were going to
Good.
do 300, which gets you to 800,000. So from this conversation, what would we be funding more than we kind of planned on would be 700,000.
I think that's right. You get to a
That's
million.
right.
That's how she gets a million and a half. That's right.
I agree.
Right.
That's what I wrote.
A million is the actual number in the budget. 250 from prior
Yes,
years,
that's
250 potentially from ARPA.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the million is 700,000.
Yeah,
way we're
sure.
gonna-
So that
yeah.
doesn't affect then. It's-
Okay,
So
so
the
you've
budget
got
would
you
go
got a
from
pin in a
300
million
to
five.
1
Okay,
And
So-
for next.
we'll
year,
talk Thursday because you're gonna just want to
You're
tumble
gonna
this,
tell us.
think that through.
I would put 1 million in for next year.
just-
And
Or a
you need to do that for
A
sure.
million, yeah, just as a whole.
That's really two, you walked out of here with 2.2. I just want to review the bidding on this. Okay, okay. You stay here long enough. Okay, anybody, anything else?
Oh, no. I
You,
think I'm
you,
done.
okay, all right, awesome. We will then summarize, what do you have any more questions for anybody? That's here, anybody that's here? Ask Brian something, but he's not. gonna answer.
Anybody on,
Okay, Bob or Michael, I know it's kind of tough to follow home.
No, I agree what you're saying, you know, I think, we can't be, a total partner up to, whatever it is, but if we have a decision whether it's 500,000 or a million extra, that's fine.
He asked for 2, we got him to 1, and he ended up with 2.2. I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
It's a mighty fine finance.
For an
Why
awesome.
did you twist that? That's okay.
All right. I think if there's nothing else, you've got what you need to do for Thursday. We're gonna summarize operating. We'll go through that. We vote, but once we clear the ARPA, first thing we'll do. Then we'll go department by department and
Yes.
approve it.
yes,
Right.
yes, and I want to go through all this with you when you got it ready tomorrow.
Yes.
Just because I need to,
We just do the summary number by
mentally-
department and
yeah,
then we do
that's right,
capital.
but I need to
But
mentally
then we're gonna have
know.
the mill rate, the building off that depending on contributions, right?
Yeah, we're not approving a mill rate
No,
Thursday, but yes, that's
our
right.
sensitivity.
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Pardon?
Yeah, it's not quite by department, but it's by grouping.
The group, that's right. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
it's
that's
the
fine.
Same lines that we.
The fewer lines, the fewer votes, the better,
What we're
Josh.
sure to incorporate is the
Right.
capital ask, just to make sure we get that,
The which?
the capital.
Yep.
just to make
Oh,
sure we get
yeah.
that vote on it.
Yeah.
We had a lot of moving pieces
Well,
there.
Well, we'll
from
move
those
it.
two guys.
We'll move it as we talk about it too.
Fewer
but
line
we
items
need
to vote
know
on, the
where
better.
We're going in all in copacetic.
Ann, anything else? I need a motion to approve the minute. Well, we didn't have any members here when we had that part of the meeting.
No moved.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Amy. Tom, second,
Second.
all in favor? Opposed, none for all you people that were seated by
What else?
default. Okay, if with nothing else, we have a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn? Moved. Second? All in favor?
No discussion.
Aye, discussion? So moved. Thank you all.
All right.
Bye-bye.